I just want to, welcome you and thank you so much for giving us your time. This is like, to me, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to be able to talk with you. So I'm
Thanks.
super excited. And I know that we're going to be joined by Chris as well. And hopefully he's able to get into the meeting. And he is a friend of yours or an associate?
Just met him. He just
Okay.
came along. He's like the Morpheus. It's like we're characters in our real life story. Like Hollywood puts you in your own screenplay. They really do. They imitate it to be clever. They put you in your own situations, and it's happened. And here we're at the final pages. But the problem is they've immersed themselves too. So Morpheus just shows up. I got a Trinity girl that just showed up. And it's like they feel called. They're all this stuff is happening. He can explain his part, but
yeah,
it's amazing.
This was spiritual for me too. I was engaging on Twitter based on everything that's been going on with the corona and then the whole riots with Antifa and everything. And I happened to be in the right place at the right time, where I've never been a social media person before, and I got to meet you. So I think this is all kind of happening for a reason.
Oh yes, I do. Your timing is absolutely perfect, because right now the trolls they're reducing them down to these guys that are like porn star recruiters now. It's like they're running out of juice. They're at the final ends of their playbook and they don't have anywhere to go. And the creative thinkers are the ones they're facing, who are now unified. And it's like a whole waking up of the world, and everybody's wondering, what does the Matrix mean? Where'd it come from? We're the ones that have the answers, not the Wachowskis.
Yes, and that is my big motivator, is to ask those questions I've had for years about because a lot of the Matrix is really understandable. It's really clear as far as metaphor goes. A lot of people have said it's a documentary, but still I've got some real burning questions, and as you know, I shared them with you so that you could kind of be prepared for my hard-hitting style.
My pleasure. I'm glad to. A core thing too is that the Matrix story actually was to whisper through art a warning of what Robertson and Disney, religious right, I call them religious right, are doing with Disney, and also some California FBI, CIA. What they all had decided was going to happen to our world. That includes Bill Gates. Gosh, there's a whole bunch of them involved in this.
Well, Tom, let me stop you. I don't mean to interrupt you. Let me stop you, and I want to just give viewers a sense of who you are if they aren't familiar with you yet.
Oh, we're on the air. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, we're recording, and I'll edit this according to what works. But I
love it. This is great. I love it.
I don't know because I don't know. Chris isn't with us yet. Hopefully, he's able to log in and everything. But let's go ahead and just get started.
Okay, yeah.
And so would you tell us a bit about yourself? What are you known for? Who are you? So that if people aren't familiar with you, they can kind of get on board.
Well, interesting thing, to answer that question right away, I just touched my nose, which would be like, oh no, you touched your nose. It's like, it's like all these like, people are so attuned to like signals, like, oh my God, they did this and that. It's like, they need to free up and really look at what the content is, the evidence. So yeah.
Yes.
But I would say who I am. I mean, I have awards and stuff like that, but if you know a little bit about me, I like to be known for my heart, empathy, being a straight shooter, that kind of stuff. And what you find out is when you go through the grist mill of Hollywood, and if you have work that they really, really want to take, suddenly the talking points start turning you into everything that's the opposite, Yeah. So now it's like people would think, oh, he's crazy, he's dangerous, they tried to 302. It's like everything is the opposite of who you really are, even if you're tested with tremendous empathy. So if they can do it, they can do it to anybody,
What you're describing is so I was exposed to this years ago. There is we were going to talk about this in this interview, but the sociopath, there is a distinct trait of the psychopath, sociopath, where they project what they're doing to their victim onto their victim. And I have watched this over and over in the last weeks and months. The radical left, the Democrats, the deep state, they're doing this to all the people who are speaking up. Even they're doing it to the president.
Yeah, and what they do too is when people, they'll take some of the people that are closest to you, buy them off, which Chris will be able to show you one of the buy off things that just happened to him offers. It's like they'll buy them off, and then suddenly those that were like loved ones or supported you or worked with you or said the world about you, now they're saying the talking points. It's just like night and day switch, like Terry Joyce out in California did like 5 interviews with me, right? I mean, she was like overboard, and one of her best friends says, oh, she's got a crush on you or something. It's like, she was like gushing, right? And it's like, oh, Tom, it's happening to me. I'm getting gang stalked because of you. And then suddenly she sends this text, which says the FBI contacted her in California. And now and right away she's trashing, doing interviews, trashing and talking points like, he's crazy, he's a liar. Well, what happened? It took you that long, 5 interviews to figure that out. It's like, so they do this total, like you said, switch, and then all the talking points go on. Other times when they sell out people, what they'll do is they're not allowed to contact you anymore, because you they might be influenced and say, well, actually he's a good guy, you know, or a nice girl or whatever.
Well, let's get into the meat of this, because, you know, I think the biggest question that comes up right off the bat when we start talking about that is, why would anyone want so much secrecy? Why do they care about you so much? So I know we didn't actually say your name yet. So Thomas Althouse, you are basically the author of The Matrix, and we'll get into what that means and all of that. And you've also done other screenplays and other off-Broadway shows and that kind of thing. So that's kind of where, you know, you're coming from professionally. So I really want to start off with all my questions are going to be hard hitting, but I'd like to start out with, if you could explain to listeners how the genesis of the Matrix story was you whispering through art.
All right, well, that's interesting, because I started out, this whole sad chapter really begins with Pat Robertson, the religious right, being at his school, Regent University, which was CBN University at the time, in Virginia Beach. And so my whole roller coaster nightmare begins at his organization, where I thought, you know, well, it'll be a good place to study. Okay, it's a Christian environment, maybe, you know, at the time, maybe I'll be just be able to go on and succeed through merits and not be bothered by any kind of otherworldly stuff. Big mistake. What happens is I end up there, and there's all kinds of, you can imagine, this feeling of like they're chosen by God, set aside, no matter what they do. If they sin, then it just makes grace better, and God cares about them. They can do any evil they want, rape, kill, murder, whatever. And it's like they're set aside by God from the beginning of the womb, whatever, sewn together, that they're set aside by grace. Others aren't. So I started to be exposed to this idea that they believed that the world was going to be given to them, that others outside that world were their fodder. Were like, if there's a beautiful woman, these nerds at CBN believed, under Robertson's, you know, encouragement, that if they took another woman who was not one of their believers, and that means somebody outside Robertson's group, not a Christian, but outside Robertson's group, then they are saving their life. So you can imagine these nerds there going like, okay, here's a beautiful woman. If I get her to like me and push the Bible on her, then I'm saving her. But okay, what about the women that aren't pretty? Well, they're not interested in them. And it's like this whole Strangelove, Dr. Strangelove scenario, where they actually believe they'll get multiple wives, that the world is going to change with one world theocratic society. Robertson's going to be the head, not the tail. He says that a lot. And I was just in a nightmare world. I was just like, oh my God, where am I? Next thing I'm told, I'm being groomed to be the face of the Christian Coalition when he's running for president in 1988. And I'm being told that the blue eyes, dimples, blonde hair at the time, that, yeah, he's going to move you up, having a 700 club. Suddenly Robertson's taken a real liking to me. So then I get taken on a trip to DC with his associate dean, Dr. Harry Sova, who's now at Liberty University. You can see him there. Gay as a bell. And what happens is I go on this trip, and he's hitting on me, tells me all about this sex ring operating at Disney and Pat Robertson's organization, that it goes all the way to the top, and that Pat Robertson heads this thing. And that all these professors, like a Dr. Bob Shield, former Catholic priest, look him up, Robertson's organization, CBN, or Regent University, was going for me. I was to be his boy, Sova said. And then Sova's coming in saying how he's going to be so mad and he's going to hate me because you're going to be my boy now, and we're going to be brothers. And he was wanting to have sex. And so some tremendous, horrible things happened on that trip. A week-long trip, wasn't supposed to bring money, all this kind of stuff in his motorhome.
Wow.
What happens is when I get back, I'm a dead man. So I'm called into a meeting, and I'm told to share everything Sova told me on the trip about Robertson. They don't care about me getting hit on and approached and everything. They want to know, Robertson's people, what did he tell you about the organization?
Yeah.
What? So I was naive, right? Bleeding heart. I'm telling him everything. And the pencil's only moving when I'm talking about what he said about Robertson. They're not moving the pencil when I talk about what he did to me personally, physically. Yeah. Right? And so after that meeting, the guy Schlosser, they all have German names. Like, these are like ex-Nazis, basically, right? Some of them didn't have the green card. What our country did and what Robertson did, just a sidelight here, take neo-Nazis, or from people like or youth, Nazi family members, and employ them into our stratus. And that's what they did. And so Robertson's organization is filled with Nazis.
Oh my God, Project
Yeah,
Paperclip.
it is. Yeah, Elser, Sloanoff, Schlosser, all these guys that were integral, and they act like Nazis, they behave like Nazis, and they use the same techniques as Nazis.
That
and
was going to be one of my questions. I'll definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, and stop me if I get too long-winded about this, but I think this is key to where the matrix comes from.
No, definitely.
So this is the genesis of the matrix, and you can see why they would want to take it, right? And why they take it, because I was going to whisper through art what's going on. So here it gets even worse. So this meeting occurs, and they say you can keep your jobs, your education. I was thriving. I was one of they called the elite. So when he came to me, he said, "You're one of the elite now." They use that term a lot throughout the whole strata, different stratas. They say the elite. They always use that. Like, this is supposed to make us feel great, but whatever. And so what happens is after the meeting, they had these guys waiting in the next room to come in. And I have the letters I can send to you, where they write one to me and they write one to Sova. Well, they don't want anybody to see the Sova letter, because the Sova letter says, from the same people signing it, October 21st, 1988, that he was wrong for what he did, taking a student alone, buying him drinks, talking about homosexuality, all that stuff. It lays it right out. On my letter, it says that I was wrong for accusing an elder, only with 2 witnesses should you, that, and they said this is a carefully crafted letter by all the parties, that my jobs and education are over, that I have to go to a counselor. It had to be shown off, real Nazi from Hitler Youth, that I was supposed to go to him for counseling sessions. He didn't even have a counseling degree, right?
Yeah.
So what's happening is they're using the church to have a sex ring operate. And Disney shares personnel back and forth. Where did Sova go with his entourage as soon as I was destroyed? Disney World. Disney paid for their trip in Disney World. So Robertson's people went down to Disney World. Where did Sova have his initial contact where he first broke the rules, which is in his letter? Disney World. He took Mimi Henderson or whatever to Disney World. So the predator ground for pedophiles and for these sex rings is Disney World. Michael Eisner is the father of intellectual property ripoff. He's also the shield for pedophiles. So now he's trying to protect his legacy. But Michael Eisner, Robertson are together. Disney and Robertson have a plan together. But that's where the Matrix story comes from, is my experience with being groomed to be the Christian Coalition head and Robertson's plans for our world that he relayed to me.
Thank you for that. That is an intense story. And I think that, something that I never see discussed among Christians
You're going to bury it.
is the history of Christianity. The Christian church has killed, raped, and destroyed the culture of more people in the world than any other entity ever throughout history. And it's like, we just don't talk about that. And I have my theories about why it's not discussed, but I just find it interesting that it really adds credibility to your story of your experience, where you discovered this horrible, abhorrent underbelly, and it's tied to the Christian church.
Well, you know why the Christians don't do anything at Robertson's organization? If there's Christians there, you know why they don't do anything?
Why is that?
Because they use the talking points. He does some good.
Yeah, you just sort of follow the talking points.
He does some good. And then they say, if he's doing wrong, of course he's doing wrong, but I don't want to know about it. That's not Christianity.
No.
That's not Christianity. And then this other guy, David Wilcox, was head of security for Robertson, right? Claimed to be a Christian. Then he became head of the animation department when I was there, right? Where I was being ousted. And he tells me on the phone, and I actually recorded that call and had a transcript of it, where he tells me that, yeah, I'm keeping a dossier on Robertson. But as long as he wants, he can say that I said whatever he wants to say I said, he can say it. And whatever he wants to have me do, I'll do it. But if he ever falls and is revealed, I'm going to reveal my journal and reveal him then. What? So he's going to benefit no matter what. That's the monsters at the religious right. That's the monsters that claim to be Christian.
So this is a perfect lead in to my next series of questions. And these are things that have been burning in my brain literally for years. I would really, you use the word monsters. Perfect. So I want to understand, why are the predators in the Matrix story, why are they insects?
Oh, very good. See, the Wachowskis didn't get it. They didn't understand the work. In fact, Joel Silver said that they had started doing galas and interviews, and then they didn't want to anymore because they didn't want to answer the questions about Christianity and the work, right?
Right.
And so by whispering through art, I was also trying to introduce, the idea of celebrating all faith, and I needed the Christ figure for the satisfying ending. Well, they took that out and put the cross on his chest and everything like that, So it was like they were mocking with visible license plates, but they didn't want to answer those questions, right? Give me your question again so I can make sure I answer it properly, though.
So one of my biggest fascinations about the Matrix, it sort of seems like left field because, yeah, we get there's a big, there's a Matrix and you're jacked into it. It's a false reality and illusion. But why are the predators insects?
There you
And why
go.
are they robots? That's
Well,
my next. So
here
why are
you
they
go.
robot
Okay.
insects?
You got to understand, it's coming from a Christian base, right?
Yeah.
So here's your answer. Revelations. In Revelations, it talks about the locust-like machines, basically without propellers. So I went off of that. The squiddies, I revamped the squiddies. As from Revelations, I turned it into serpent-like appendages that impaled with lightning-like precision, and that's what they really got off on. And then I also used the idea of blue lightning effects, which they have, and that any victim of a squiddy, the face of that victim would be in blue on the front of the squiddy. Now, there's a documentary they made of Matrix where they show Neo in the pod and the squiddy thing, like the creatures, machines in front of him, his face is blue on the front of the machine.
Wow.
What they were doing was lifting every image they thought was cool from the screenplay. So when people see the Immortals, which is copyrighted, the Matrix isn't, they're going to see where the Wachowskis, the way they convinced the suits to let them take the material, besides the audition piece by Bound from Joel Silver to see if they could direct. Keep in mind, there's an article where the Wachowskis say they were finished as writers in 1995 because they failed at Assassins, where another writer had to be brought in to finish the work, right? And that's because they used too much violence. They destroyed the central sympathetic character, and they didn't have the love story. So the other character was Dino Laurentiis, who wined and dined them, right? Had brought in this other writer to finish the work. And so it pissed the Wachowskis off. So the Wachowskis end up, wanting out of Warner Bros. That's when Joel Silver gave them my work, which they called the Science Project in an article. Their real work is Plastic Man and Carnivore. And their Bible is how I made a million in Hollywood without losing a dime, basically, right? And that's about making B movies. So why would they make my expensive movie? My movie's off the charts in cost, but I was working to whisper through art warnings. I wasn't writing something that was going to be budget-wise, right, or sensible. So then the green screen comes along. So they had to reduce scenes, make them cheaper. That's why the train station scene was reduced down to a static family at it with a little girl, instead of the crowded scene I had, which is like getting out of Saigon. The train station was crowded, yeah.
And you had, and this is I know that you really are interested in this part about the girl, and so this is a great time to ask you, and I do have a lot more questions, but how the little girl matters to the satisfying ending. And you had talked about Revelation, and you had talked about yeah, I'd love to hear about the little girl, and I think that since you began to talk about that, let's talk about that right now for a minute.
I love it. I'm glad you're saying it, because that's the Achilles heel, one of the big Achilles heel. I mean, there's a lot for the Wachowskis. They're not smart, but the thing is, like, the little girl in their fan page, they claim that the little girl is just a subplot. Well, the little girl is integral to a satisfying ending. To put the little girl at the end, and I think people who are articulate and intelligent will understand, who are fans, that it is not a satisfying ending. To have the little girl pointing the sun, why is she there? If she's just a subplot, why do you have her at the end hugging and pointing the sun? What? There's no awe moment for the audience, no wake up bells and like, oh, now I get it moment. So in the original, though, the Immortals, I'm glad you asked, is that the little girl is integral. She is integral. And in fact, after the Wachowskis got all my notes, when they threw that first case, when it was like they provided their attorney and everything to throw it, and we didn't have any due process at all, and all kinds of fraud, what they did was they had access to all the notes and everything. And they started to understand how the little girl was important. So then they announced that they were going to maybe do Matrix 4 at some point. At that time, they were saying it could be subtitled, The Little Girl Matters. They knew they were embarrassed. They were very embarrassed that the little girl didn't make sense in theirs. In mine, there's a reason the little girl is written in the first place. The little girl was named Brittany in mine. They named her Sati, right? So they reversed the letters on everything. In fact, they named Neo Thomas A. They put my high school, my birthday, my dad's name, everything in the first graphic upside down for a split second. So it's like
that was amazing.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah, because they never think I'll see it, but they don't count on people disliking them. They're considered, I'm not going to use a colorful term, jerks at Warner Brothers. And so everybody knows, they said it's common knowledge they stole it. No one likes them. So of course people are going to leak it through and go, regardless of non-disclosure agreements, and call me and say, Tom, look in the first graphic, your high school's there, Central West High. I mean, come on, guys.
Well, it's so
your name
weird
is
that
Thomas A.
it's
What's
so
that?
weird that they want to gloat, you know, I mean, why gloat? Because you sort of leave yourself open to being found out, but it's
Well,
like
the
that ego is so strong.
That's it. The answer was ego. Also, they didn't understand your work. They hate you, Tom. They wanted to feel more clever than you, so they stuck this stuff in. It's in for a split second upside down. Susanna Bolgen says in her article that means no one's going to see it. You know, it's for their
Yeah.
liars only.
Right,
But
right.
that's during VHS time, too. That's back when you can't freeze frame a shot, right? Who's going to notice it during the film running, right? But now with digital, you can freeze frame it. And I can send you the graphic, or you can look at redpillrising.org and see it there.
Yeah,
But
I'm
you'll
glad
see the
you mentioned
pages
your
turning.
website. Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll see the page turning in the still.
Yeah.
That's how fast it goes. But there's Central West High, right, as junior high. Well, that's not a
Yeah.
tweak. And Susanna Bolgen talks about stacking the entries so they can get by the clearance department. So all those entries have to get by the clearance department.
And when you
And so
say
what happens
entries, just for those of us who are less savvy to the industry speak, what is it? What do you mean by entries, stacking entries? Is
my
that
personal information.
okay,
Thomas
yeah.
A is Neo. Anderson, my Scottish clan name, is his last name.
I love
July
that one.
22nd as my birthday, which was on 1996 records. My birthday was listed as July 22nd. Later in Animatrix, they corrected to July 2nd because that was 2003 when the records were corrected.
Yeah.
So then you have my high school, Central West High. You have in the column, you have the margin on the side. We'll get back to your little girl question in a second. But it says TA 4099. TA was 4099.
Yeah.
So you have all that stuff. And then you have this very scary, cryptic numerology 380 after all that in big, bold numbers. What is that? The numerology, it means to give up your worldly possessions to prepare for your death. You know, your most cherished worldly possessions.
Right.
Well, the Wachowskis are just spelling it right out. You're going to lose this stuff. We'll help you prepare for your death. Then on the red clock, the red hand on the 4 past the 4, yeah, it was 44 in 2003, but the red hand on the 4 also means assassination, with my exact birthday on the clock also in black hands. So they are putting a message, we want him dead.
And I'm definitely, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm definitely going to ask you a difficult question later on, but
we'll get back to the girl though for you.
Please keep that in mind. Yeah, that
okay,
related to the threats and everything. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's look at the little girl. Yeah, very good. I want to answer those. It's there's so much to this. They've done so much by immersing me in my own film and others, buying off so many people, taking away so many jobs, telling me that I know what it means, like Robertson's people said, that the talking point they use now is, oh, it's all convoluted. He's all over the map. Excuse me. All this information they have fed me through contacts and answered questions, that's a gold mine for writers.
You know,
that's a nightmare for them.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good opportunity to kind of just bring up that, you know, we talked a little bit earlier about how, you know, the predator, the psychosis, one of the symptoms of it, how you can recognize is that they're projecting. And so when they're saying like, oh, he talks really fast or he's all over the map, quote unquote, really, I see the connection. I see what you're saying. You make sense to me. And I understand that you're also really passionate and upset because of what's been done.
Very passionate.
So to me,
upset, yeah.
if you're really paying attention and listening, which a lot of people are kept very distracted, so it's difficult to do that. But if you really cue in and listen, I don't see there's like a flaw in logic or craziness. I get where you're coming from. So
well, that's the thing. It's like I got tested to make sure to counter their talking points. They're throwing bipolar 1 and 2, paranoid schizophrenic, narcissist, dangerous. That's like the opposite of who I am. But it's like for those that know me, like, oh, really sweet guy. But the thing is, if it's happening to me, it's happening to others. And I fear for all these people out there who have good hearts, creative visionaries that are getting destroyed and their families are being destroyed. I got 2 murdered sons. And so it's like, and they let me know that they're murdered. And then they have sellout people saying, oh, they're not, they just died. Right. At the bottom of that hole. So that's what they're doing is they're doing this stuff. But the thing is, these talking points are applied to destroy your life. They let you know that's so while they're calling you all these things. But when you get tested, like I got tested to counter it. And the lady said, this top like psychiatrist person or whatever in her field tested me, right? And so she comes after 2 years, two days of testing. She's like, well, you're obviously, you know, tremendous empathy. You've tested as 1% in the population for intelligence and genius. You obviously wrote the Matrix story. And so that's what's happening is it's like the testing comes that way. What do they say? Oh, he's crazy, dangerous, you know, delusional, all over the map, convoluted, you know, it's like, but they're counting on the dumb, what they consider the dumb part of society to back that, with their trolls and listen to the dance.
Yeah.
And talking points.
Yeah.
And then they're going to shut out the articulate ones.
Yeah, and you've got the mainstream media is completely, pumping out just lies. I've been paying attention, like I said, to social media lately because of everything, and I've literally caught the mainstream media in complete lies multiple times now, just on Twitter. They're just posting absolute lies. So absolutely, they're just going to discredit you, and obviously, there's a clear reason why they would want to do that. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to get to a question about the architect because I know that
girl first. I never.
Oh, there's more about the little girl. Yes, no, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, no, there's so much about the little girl.
Okay.
There goes the nose. I'm sorry about my nose is itching right now. It's not because I'm trying to lie. So anyway, I know if you go like this, it's like, okay, well, let me think. He's giving the sign.
Illuminati.
Like, we've got to get over that. We've got to get over the signs. Like, oh, look what he just did. No,
he scratched his forehead.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Cut through. That's what they want you to think. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like focus on the critical evidence and the stuff because we're all going to be making things, and it's like he smiled crooked.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think we should talk about. No, they'll do that. Yeah. Anyway, it's they want us to be dumb. We're not.
Yes,
it's like come on.
They
if I'm itching my ear, it means nothing. But anyway, the little girl. Yes, in fact, the little girl does matter, especially to the author. The reason the little girl is there in the story, and the reason she's at the ending pointing at the sun, is because she's supposed to be hugging Neo, not the Oracle. You see, the Christ is supposed to be the figure that completes the balance of the equation we'll get into later, how the balance equation.
Yes.
So you have to have the Christ figure do it. So they didn't want the Christ figure, obviously. The Wachowskis didn't want that. And that's why they're embarrassed answering questions. They didn't want to do interviews anymore. So what they do is they take the Christ figure out and put Neo in. You can't have Neo take that place. It doesn't work. Neo is supposed to be watching it all unfold because it's a message about how we can't do it on our own. And it's about man trying to outsmart God and God outsmarting man. So the architect tries to outsmart God and God outsmarts the architect. I think that's a cooler ending. And what happens is the architect imitates Revelations, right? And then God completes it. He allowed man to do that because man didn't think God was there, which is what Robertson's idea is, how he applies the architect. So what happens is you have to have the little girl coming back to Neo, her father, who he lost her, which I did in real life, hugging him and pointing to the sun, Christ figure, saying that's the man that pulled me out of the fire. That last line before you go to black is very important. It's not supposed to be, did you create that sunset? Mm-hmm. No, garbage, stupid. Wachowskis, you're dumb. Sorry to say it. They're the worst people to do a take on the work. Anybody else could have done a better job. A 5-year-old could have done a better job. I wrote it so that everybody could immerse in the story, and I left a lot of backstory out so they could put their own personal story in to make it their own. And they even say in interviews, yeah, we meant for everybody to figure it out for themselves. No. It's meant for audiences to put their own personal life in, to fill in the blanks that I left for them so that they can then immerse in the story and then turn to their neighbors and say, what do you think it means? Which brings people together. Again, the Wachowskis say, oh yeah, it was supposed to bring people together. Yeah, Larry, Andy, how?
Right.
How did you see that happening? Oh, we're not going to answer that. Let audiences determine for themselves. Well, I'll tell you. By leaving the backstory out from the original work, which is copyrighted, theirs isn't. I'm passionate about it. The people come together and they insert and have the questions answered. For me, the little girl was my daughter being restored to me. And what happened to my little girl? In real life, she was reprogrammed by Robertson's organization to hate her father. Now she's an angry middle-aged woman who never even talked to her dad and is trashing me online because she was reprogrammed. My 2 boys that died explained to me how those reprogram sessions went. And my one son said that he was told the sessions wouldn't stop by Robertson social workers until he believed his dad was narcissistic, dangerous, paranoid, and hated him and abandoned him.
So one of my questions is about you, and you even, I love that you brought up these Nazis, because that was one of my questions. I wanted to know, we're going to talk about the CIA here in a minute, but I wanted to know what, are Nazis involved in this, and is specifically MK Ultra involved in this? And it sounds like you just basically were talking about that. Our
CIA is Nazi. It's like, really, the CIA formed in World War II, if I'm not mistaken. And what was its purposes? Espionage and murder. So you've got this organization that's going to watch over us, our interests, that was born to be espionage and murder. There's a congressman named Brian Fitzpatrick, who's our Pennsylvania congressman, who has bought and rewarded my sister off the charts. She was sold out completely, and you watch the arrogance come on her, and she's just hateful now and threatening and all kinds. He even says Secret Service is going to come for you, Tom. They tried to 302 me and everything. So she's in Fitzpatrick's pocket. He's going to be our congressman again, but he's actually still active FBI California. How is a congressman from California, FBI, and I have a picture on his desk when I went in to give him a letter of FBI, big fat letter, it says, for your eyes only. So how is an operative for FBI California, our congressman out here, giving my sister, who's a nobody, she was the dumbest of all of us. I'm sorry to say she was not the sharpest tool in the shed. And she was the one that was just a school counselor at an elementary school, Rolling Rock Meadows, right? That's it. Not even a degree. I mean, not even a license. And so what happens is she gets after they tried to 302 me, Brian Fitzpatrick puts her big picture on the floor of Congress, gives her president of the psychiatrists in Pennsylvania, that's a slap in all those educated ones, and gives her top psychiatrist or psych person in Pennsylvania, gives her trips to the Caribbean, London, New York. It's like they bragged they're going to get the most expensive range you could buy. Her husband was unemployed. How the hell are they affording all this? Because Brian Fitzpatrick is one of the main operatives with Hollywood and with Spielberg and Eisner at Disney. Brian Fitzpatrick should not be our congressman. He should be behind bars. And he has made sure my sister is, because they use your family to destroy you, right? My sister was, quote, my biggest fan. And now she works night and day against me. And so that's supposed to make, and she got the whole family, they had a family meeting to put me away as a 302. What? The lady who diagnosed, a tremendous empathy and, genius, visionary, she was approached. And I have a tape of her, actually I have a tape of that psychiatrist saying, I've been called, I'm afraid to make the report. I'm afraid to make a report. And I said, look, you're on the winning side. Just do the right thing, do your job and do it. And she did. And I have that I can send to you.
Wow.
What it says. Yeah. That's how far they go to destroy you. I was hauled off in the middle of the night for a 302. I didn't do. That means murder, suicide. They were claiming I was going to kill my own son. They approached my clinician. They approached my job in New York at Hudson Theater Works, got them to turn, gave my cousin Todd Hilsey all these awards. He can't act worth a pea. And yet his acting is simply going like, I feel this monotone, then pause. I feel this monotone, then pause. I feel this monotone, then pause. And he's up for the Broadway World Awards for Best Actor. That's because they do that. And he got to argue at the Supreme Court. He's not even an attorney. Right after he turned on me. And
well,
he's showing off a picture. He's showing a picture wearing Boss suits and Armani suits and Boss.
Right.
People,
well,
please.
You mentioned the FBI, and we were talking about the CIA a little bit. Now I think that this really directly aligns. One of the reasons I wanted to do this interview is because when I'm observing, there's a lot of parallels and a lot of confluence. And you said even earlier that things are starting to shift. I think that if you look at, the indictments and the interviews right now, the testimonies that are being given by all these people who were involved in the Russian collusion, it's basically been totally shown to be a hoax. That the FBI is strongly implicated in lying. And so the trust in the FBI has been weakened. And I just wanted to throw that in there, that there is a lot of what you're saying is corroborated by world events, in particular, the attempt to impeach President Trump and a lot of other things going on right now with coronavirus and Antifa.
I want to show you something really cool. Look at this. I mean, I'll send you the graphic. Look at the face on there. That is Brian Fitzpatrick. And Brian Fitzpatrick in this article, they use newspapers, they own media. They try to clean it up for him because we were coming forward about him, right? So look at the title. What happens is Brian Fitzpatrick, it reveals in the article, they try to blow it over so they could be the first one to say it. Well, it talks about him heading a anti-corruption department for the FBI, saying the FBI usually doesn't do this, in the Ukraine, working with Trudeau's administration closely. And he's over there in 2016, basically. And what he's doing is he's ruining the life of one of the attorneys in Ukraine trying to make a difference, saying he's not doing enough. And he says, and this should give chills, he says in here that the entire law enforcement apparatus agrees with Fitzpatrick that this man has to go. Why? It's like the Kempetai, I think I said it right, in Japanese. It's like he's doing a shadow organization. This man right here, Brian Fitzpatrick, is the main arm of Disney, Robertson, and Hollywood moguls to make sure our government is basically undermined, destroyed. Right there, that man. And you know what my sister said? My sister, and get this, my sister said, just like Sova, he's gay. Brian Fitzpatrick is gay. But I'm not knocking down gays. I'm saying he's what Sova told me on the trip, militant gay. Sova on the trip told me there's different types of gay, and he's part of the militant gay.
And what is militant gay?
Militant gay is what they call themselves. And he said that they are going to use the church, because church is supposed to be, quote, love,
right,
to destroy our country, suspend all our rights. And Robertson's plan for presidency was to do a false flag war. That's why it's in the Immortals, the false flag. That's why the Wachowskis put in the second graphic 9/11.
Yeah.
In my screenplay, Robertson's character is bragging about knowledge. He says, well, first of all, he wants the false flag. He's saying, I need this to the architect.
Let's talk about the architect more, because I definitely want to understand. I love that you basically modeled the architect, or the architect was modeled after this Pat Robertson guy, and so because the architect, because he's the architect of the Matrix, and therefore the entire Matrix, the entire simulation in the analogy is a machine or computer. I wanted to go back.
Well, there you go. See, the Wachowskis didn't understand the work. Joel Silver didn't understand the work, right? And so what you see before they have Becca Northcutt planted to be, the like Total Recall wife, have access to everything when she's coming from the landlord was the attorney they're providing this for the case, Rankin. So what you have is you've got this thing where they don't understand the work, so they do a simulation. Actually, in mind, if you jack to the neck, you're in simulations. You can control those simulations like memories. You relive memories, everything else, which also didn't understand it. So they cheapened everything. Robot-like agents became robots in the program. Joel Silver argued, that's stupid. The stakes are low. It has to be real-life people as agents in the program, that if they show fear, they're terminated. That's what raises the stakes. And then in mine, you have the best friend of Neo being a former agent that was released from being an agent, and his memories are erased, but he still has residues of the horrible things he did. And then he's reinstated at the right time to be at the Cortex building, so that when Neo inserts with Trinity character, that's why they enter unopposed through the seamless, going through walls like ghosts, because he's accessing Smith's programming, follow all the layers, to use his memories to access the Cortex building. And who's there? Only his one friend reinstated to take him out. And he says, like with my sister being bought off, the character says, I was reinstated. It's supposed to cause, despair and all, whatever. And he says, I'm supposed to take you out. And basically he says, because of friendship, he's not going to, and he's terminated there. And that's how Trinity and Neo get access to the Cortex building unopposed. Now the Wachowskis, again, cheapen everything. And so it just makes it look like they just walked in. What? So they didn't know how to work that, because they ruined it. They said it's a simulation, and they're robots, as Joel Silver said in the program. And so it's actually Joel Silver that comes up with the idea of robots in the program. When on the pages I have, it's robot-like. And keep in mind that when Joel Silver gets all the notes and everything during the Throne case with the provided wife and provided attorneys, and throws the case with no due process and all the fraud, they had all the notes and discovery and working drafts. So then he comes out right away announcing at the end of the Throne case, we're doing Oblivion. Disney held Oblivion for him. They were going to create the novel. They decided not to have to create the novel because I was destroyed. So they're not even going to do the novel as a plausible source material. And they announced that the robots are real people in the program, in Oblivion. And they keep the same ending with the little girl pointing and everything.
Wow.
So it's like, that's why Wachowski's did Sense8, and they said it actually said it's too big to write down. But they got $1 million deal with Netflix. You didn't even show them anything. There's nothing on paper, because they were so excited to steal again after my case is thrown and had all my notes, that they got it right that way too. In Sense8, you have the whole idea of blended memories. You're accessing memories you don't know what they're for. That's why in Matrix, you got Neo blinded with Trinity with him going towards the dome, which I have the dome. And the dome comes from Germania. The architects, because the architect is a blend of Robertson and Hitler. It's the only character in history that will make sense of an architect bringing a one world society where he controls all population.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, we
there
have
he is. Yeah, you made it. He has had so much trouble getting through to anything because they keep blocking him.
Hi,
so
Chris.
It like shows you what happens. Go ahead. Hey, Chris.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
How you doing? I was wondering
you made
what was
it.
going on.
Yeah, so we're just kind of talking about all of this, and glad you could join us. And it looks beautiful where you are.
Yeah, I'm about 10 minutes from downtown St. Louis.
All right.
Tell her what happened to you after you started joining in to help out and be the Morpheus.
My phone's been acting stupid. Can't make phone calls sometimes. Can't make text messages. Gives me two different errors. One is emergency phone calls only, and the other one is no network found. Everybody in a house has the same service, but I'm the only one that's affected.
And then that message you got too, I just wanted to share this really quick. The message you got from the lady offering you all that money, which happened to my sister, my cousin, everybody else in my life, basically, is this happens. Can you tell her about the message?
Yeah, I got a message on Twitter from a lady claiming to be an Illuminati, and she wanted me to join Illuminati, promised me a better life, protection for my family, all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm anti-Illuminati. There's no way.
So this woman, she said, that's interesting that she thought that telling you she was part of the Illuminati would make you want to join her, because usually that's the Illuminati is put in it's cast in a very negative light.
Yeah.
Well, so that just, I mean, we were talking earlier, and I think that there's so much to this that I can see very clearly why you would want, why they'd want to shut you down and why they'd want to get people to stop supporting you. And, I mean, it's kind of scary to be doing this interview, but I care about this so much. And I'm kind of like, I don't really, I don't know. I have a lot of faith that there is a spirit working to help get this out.
You are safe. You're safe because right now, talking with each other, you're actually safe. See, right now, we're considered assets in Hollywood. The real life story is worth a fortune, they said. The contacts are calling and say that your real life story is worth a fortune. Their attorneys even say it. So what's happening is, like Hollywood attorneys, it's like they put us in our own story, and now they say, quote, bigger than the Matrix. So they threw us in our own story. It's like, Chris here is like the Morpheus. It's like they throw us in our own story, and now they want to capitalize off of that and think they can buy us off of that. But what would we be doing? My two sons are murdered. What am I going to do? Forget about them and go, oh, let's go, Aiden. We're going to be rich now. And forget about Sean and Kurt. Sacrifice, thank you very much. You gave us a house and a boat.
Well, it's like those people, I think that, and again, I'm contextualizing our conversation here in the broader context of what's been going on, what Q has been revealing to the people, and what all the patriots following Q are kind of aware of, having taken the red pill, which is a just kind of like perfect metaphor, right? And it directly
relates from our work.
Right. I mean, even on the X-22 report a couple of days ago, Dave just mentioned the Matrix out of nowhere, and I was thinking, like, I mean, so I think that they have a real vested interest in shutting this down because, there's crimes against humanity that keep being mentioned, and that I probably am aware on a deeper level than a lot of people. I'm not trying to brag in any way. I'm just saying I've kind of dug deep into what's actually going on, and it's very dark. And it's
we hold the key. You know why they're doing so much to our family, friends and family, stuff like that, and why my sister and cousin were bought, and my brother too. My brother actually says that the only work he gets is small contracts from Disney. Figure, we're in Pennsylvania. So yeah, but this work right here, see, the copyright office stepped in, the specialist and the copyright director stepped in and did this for me. And they said it's irrefutable. This is proof. And you'll see down at the bottom, it'll say 1998. So this is what was used on set to shoot the Matrix along with the visual storyboard. And they lifted all the images. There's all kinds of tabs on here, which is all the different images they lifted. There's 190 from the original work. And so what they did was they wanted to get credit that way. They didn't understand the work, so they lifted images and just cheapened the scenes down to save on budget. That's why the train station scene, like we said. But here's the key. If the original work now is made and they put an injunction on us and say, well, we're going to put an injunction on you, Warner Bros. Attorneys, they're idiots, right? Then we can go, okay, then you're admitting similarities. We win in court. We'll win. If they say, we'll let you go, then audiences come with that checklist and see Jack's the Neck, which Wachowski said in articles they want to do for real. Hello, if you wrote it, saying that, hello.
Elon Musk and the brain robot.
Yeah. And so the thing is, like, all those things show up, right? And so, I mean, God, that's like ZP. It's like they just shot themselves in the foot. We win either way, right?
Yeah.
Unless they buy us off. And so,
Right.
like, I think Chris was talking about, you know, unless he stopped helping Tom, and that came right away, you know, he got these awards if he stops helping Tom. Well, that's, my sister bit that like a, you know, like a watermelon. And so it's just like, you know, she went right for that. That was juicy for her. And look at all the awards she's getting. My cousin Todd sporting a Marnie suits and Boss right after he sells me out, and talking about arguing at both Canada and basically Canada's equivalent of Supreme Court and the US Supreme Court, and also talking about getting Broadway awards for Best Actor. My God, he can't act. But the thing is, like, that's what they do. You know, my sister bragging about the most expensive range they're going to get and just trashing all the time. My loving sister, who I, you know, had danced with me at her wedding and said, I wouldn't be alive for you, Tom. You saved my life. You know, you're like the one that made me be able to go on. She even played Wind Beneath My Wings at the wedding. So it's like, how can you suddenly turn and go just arrogant, hateful, and everything? Now she says she's all about power and image. And you see her, she talks about spray on tans, all this wealth. Anyway, so yeah. So it's like, thank God for people like Chris here. And like, there's a girl named Emily who's just a real gem. She's like my Trinity. And they're coming through and they're actually saying, we're not going to take awards. We're going to see this through. We're saying no. That's what Hollywood never thought would happen. They always, and Robertson too, thought that everybody, quote, has their price. My sister sure did. Todd sure did. X They Provided sure did. And many, many others always approached. Jobs had their prices, but these guys don't. So finally, we've cracked their playbook. We've broken it. And we're able to go forward. But again, the Immortals is the key. Make that screenplay the way it was written. It's over. The game is over. And they now have context saying the game is over. You've won, Tom. You won the chess game because of interviews. And thank God for your one here.
Well, yeah, no, and this is a delight to me as well. It's just totally fascinating. It's so current and tied to everything. Now, I want to kind of direct our conversation a little bit back to the sociopathy. That was a word that you used to describe Pat Robertson. And
Absolutely.
I'm really interested in this, and I want to hear from you as to what you think, where did he become a sociopath? What is the root of his psychosis, and where is he getting this, you know, this plan that you say he had, and that you're whispering through art, whispering through the matrix to reveal and warn people about? I don't know that, you know, I'm not expecting you to know that, but I'd love to hear what your perspective is. Where do you think this disease of the mind came from, and who gave him this plan? Like, who does he work for? What, you know, what's he getting this from?
I'll have to blame basically American culture. It's like we start out with this, what is it, Horatio Alger, whatever story. It's like we're founded on the idea of having success and that we can become millionaires in America. Now that stupid idea and thread that was supposed to make America great, you know, that anybody could become a millionaire, that's really the seed of our downfall. It really made us the Roman Empire. Basically, you've got Robertson who wants that, and he believes God has called that for him. His whole doctrine is the law of reciprocity and prosperity. So he's teaching his flock, if you call them that, of black, you know, dark sheep, that they're going to be rich if they give to him, right? And that's even the moral story too. So it's like he actually has this dentist that says, you know, on this one of his advertisement programs that says, you know, his wife, the target audience is 40-year-old married women, he says in his teachings, he's teaching at school, is telling her husband, who's a dentist that gave to another ministry, that God was not blessing him anymore because he's supposed to give to Pat Robertson. Then it shows him writing a check to Pat Robertson, and then it shows the announcer saying a miracle happened. His business increased 50-fold, you know? And it's like, so the idea their messages are doing like Goebbels in World War II, these polished images, clean images, all this stuff, and the woman leading the way for the man to go back to Robertson, and then you have prosperity if you give to Robertson, not to other ministries. See, he is the Antichrist. He wants to be the Antichrist. In fact, he built a man-made mountain next to his property in Virginia Beach, Mount Trashmore, right? Which is modeled after the World War II damaged cities in Germany were bulldozed into piles and then made into parks. Brilliant idea. Well, Robertson is mirroring the Nostradamus prediction. He's trying to be clever, like the Wachowskis, bring everything together and make it congeal with him. And so the man-made mountain in the east, the third would rise by the man-made mountain in the east. So he makes a man-made mountain in the east. And he wants to, Hollywood and Disney are in hit with him, and it's coming out in articles now. He wants to interview Christ returning. That's the ending of the Immortals. That's where you have the balance of the equation. And so he wants to do that but he doesn't really believe in God at all. He believes in money and prosperity. So he believes that he'll stage this with Disney's help, and Christ will appear to be returning to him to give dominion over the world after our world is totally disabled. He'll be the one that sets it right by Christ returning to him on the man-made mountain.
So it's some kind of like, it's like a religious, like I really see a connection with the Christian religion where he's taken his religious beliefs and he's twisted them into like this personal, I don't know. He's obviously sounds crazy.
But you'll see it in the Toronto Star too. You're right. It's insane. And I'll answer your question further, but it's like he doesn't believe in God. That's why, I mean, people take a look at his program. Only for a second, you get sick over it. But he'll go like this. Here's my interpretation of Robertson. And I have a question when I do this. You ready? After I do it. Here's Robertson. There's a person out there, Ethan or Emily or Edgar. You have a headache right now, and God's telling me that you're healed in the name of, praise God. Praise God. Now, let me just talk about that a second, what I just did. First of all, God must be really weak voiced, because Robertson's obviously having a hard time hearing him. You know, he's getting the names wrong. He's not really getting a clear message there. But what Robertson is doing is laying out possibilities for people then to respond and go, it was me. It was me. And then he gets his donations up, right? He's a medicine salesman.
Yeah, that's
Pony Dog and Pony Show. Yeah, and so he does that. First of all, that wouldn't be communication with God. And then the idea that, you know, he has the power to heal him, right? He wants to take the place of God. That's why they changed the CBN University to Regent University, rule in the place of God.
Yeah.
And so his whole plan, that's what I put in the Mortal Story. That's why he didn't want that out there. When Bonaventura, who still claims on Wikipedia that he discovered and shepherded the Matrix story and was one of the few that understands it, well, yeah, it was Nadia Centino, one of Robertson's students, that had me hook up with her father-in-law, Lenny Coco, who was best friends with Bonaventura, that had me pitch it to him directly. At the same time, just before, Robertson's professors, Ned and Judy Nankovich, Judy Nankovich is a model agent, right, and a model herself. How does she suddenly get top positions at the story development departments at Disney and Universal? Well, she's on the East Coast, and she's a model talent manager. How did she just get top story positions? And I got the letters from them saying so. Then they're asking for my work immediately, that that's wrong what Robertson did to you, Tom. We're going to help you. We'll submit your work. Judy just got top positions. I got the letters. And so there goes my work to Eisner in just before 93. I pitched to Bonaventura in 93. And what does Eisner do? He brings in Bob and Harvey Weinstein, Mike Lang, he doesn't want to talk about right now. Mike Lang is their boss, forms Miramax Films. When? 1993. They call their Disney library the hard copy of early 90s scripts they don't own in a what? New Jersey warehouse. That's in the Variety article, Vanity Fair. So what do you have going on here? Michael Eisner is the intellectual property theft father. He puts them in a position. What's Mike Lang's title, basically? Executive in charge of strategy for acquisition of intellectual property. Hello? Yeah. Who holds on to Oblivion for Joel Silver? After my case is thrown, he gets it. No other bidders to Joel Silver. Disney. Who sends my ex-wife, who has provided me, an email on my birthday, right? When she leaves us the second time, when the time for appeal is over, is thrown. She leaves us. She gets an email from who? Mike Lang, Ziet Zion, on my birthday. What does it show? A bed with a shaving kit on it. A big, arrogant L on this most expensive historic property in Spokane, Washington. They're really into it. Like Joel Silver wants the historic post office. Picture of that. And a message. Becca, move in with me for 60 days, question mark. So she's leaving Aiden and I, after she sends us to Canada for our safety under Trudeau's administration, and Mike Lang sends that on my birthday. So Becca, the planted prostitute, who now admits, yeah, she had sex with guys all the time during the marriage. So what? She claims on a tape I have, it's just connections, just sex, just connections. After all that time as a plant saying, I would never do anything. I was always with you. I love you. I would never do it, you know, that kind of thing.
Well, the whole thing is like so, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just,
please.
I'm fascinated the whole thing is, it seems like, you know, this taboo subject, sex, is at the center of it, but it's not like healthy, you know,
No.
it's like some kind of perverted, and I know that this is hard for people. I realize, and this is something that's coming out with all the Q revelations, you know, that this is something that's so hard for people to focus, to look at, because it makes you feel sick. It makes you feel totally like your world is melting around you. It's an awful thing. But I kind of think we need to kind of address this. You know, you talked about the origin of this story for you was you became aware of what was going on, and that it was a sex ring. And I'm hearing that there's a lot of people involved, and I hear that you said Disney's involved. I'm wondering if this is the same, you know, pedophile ring that we've heard about with Epstein and Weinstein.
Yes, it is. It is.
That's what I suspected.
It is. In fact, what's interesting is I did an interview, I think it may have been Red Pill, I don't know, Red Pill 78, but I did an interview not too long ago where I talked about Bob Iger, right, at Disney. And we had just had a call, Sophia Stewart's main guy who left her because she said he was a fraud. She was a fraud and she was trashing him. So he came over to help me some. And so what happens is we get a call from Disney, or talk to Disney, Bob Iger's office. And his assistant says, Bob Iger's going to call you. Next day, we're doing the interview, right? And I mentioned about Bob Iger and the sex ring at Disney. Next thing we know, the next day, Bob Iger's fired. And they do a sting of the lower echelon pedophiles at Disney. Now, that's a huge move by Disney, right? And I likened it to the turn of events in Goebbels' propaganda in World War II, where Stalingrad, the German media and propaganda machine had to turn their focus with Stalingrad. When Stalingrad happened, they had to then turn their PR program into, oh, we might lose. Please support your country because we might lose. You know, it was a total from everything was glorious and winning. The same thing happened to Michael Eisner. For the first time, Michael Eisner has to, because he still controls the Disney from behind. He does. He's concerned about his image and legacy. He still calls the shots. And the 2016 article shows that. But Eisner goes through the same thing. He has to then do a pressure release by doing a sting article about a sting on the lower echelon, not the middle and upper management pedophiles, the lower ones. And that's supposed to make the public that they think is dumb go, oh, they took care of business, look. But for them to do that says, hey, we might be at fault. We might be losing. It's their Stalingrad. They had to change their PR tactics. Now it shows that they're weak. They may lose. And what's happening at the same time? MGM sells out to Disney in like what, a 10-minute deal where half it was all cash. You've got Fox right to Disney. They own ABC News. They're all running back to the mothership. What's happening is Disney is the father of intellectual property ripoff. It is Eisner who Roy Disney put in place. He still calls the shots. So now all these companies that have benefited off the stolen material are selling out back to Disney. They're like, oh God, okay, let's just cut our losses. Let's take our profits and run. You can have it back, Disney. Take it, Eisner. It was your idea in the first place. We don't want in this. Meanwhile, Mike Lang, by having his pants down with the ex-wife, has done the cardinal sin of the cabal. He's put the trail back to Eisner. We would have never have known Michael Eisner was behind all this. We'd never put it together unless Michael Eisner dropped his pants for Becca and did an email where he bragged it and showed it.
I want to talk a little bit too about, okay, so these guys are committing these horrible crimes against humanity. They're raping children, they're human trafficking, and worse.
Destroying families, murdering sons and daughters. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm really, really fascinated by something that I don't hear talked about really, and that is like, why are these people committing these? You know, what is the psychosis? And something that a theory that I kind of have is that, you know, I've heard a little bit about like you take a celebrity and you force them somehow to commit an act.
You put dirt on them so they're in your. Yeah, you put dirt on them so they're under your
blackmail.
Control. Yeah, dirt. Yeah.
And I'm really interested as to why these people wouldn't come forward and just admit and say, I was forced to do this and I was blackmailed to do this. I want to come clean. My conscience is. Yeah.
The reason is because they feel like they have a small piece of the puzzle that it won't really do much good. That's why we have to bring everybody together. Now, with us coming forward with like the immortal story, if we make it, things like that, the doors are going to bust open. Brad Martin has stepped forward through Tiffany Fitz, I can't remember her name, Fitz, the other host. And he said, yeah, Wachowski's made it up on set. Yeah, she told me that they want to talk to me, and they said, like, yeah, Brad said that, you know, they made up on set. Wachowski's common knowledge. He was on set. He was a fight choreographer. So that's now coming forward. So what happens is they're looking for the license to come forward, the safety to come forward. Somebody has to go first. We hold the key, like what Christopher's done here. He's just opened a whole train, a Q train going. And now the results of what this man has done is off the charts. He just deserves accolades for what he's done, and great patience just sitting there too. That's
yeah.
Yeah, and Chris,
like,
I took down the queen.
I'd love to hear about your involvement, and I don't mean to cut you off, Tom. You look like you still have
please
more to
do.
say,
There's so many. Like, it's weird. My mind multi-tracks, and I'm like, okay, little girl, Robertson's, Centra, and all the stuff. I can retrace it later. I can do a callback on these.
There's so much.
You go ahead. It's so many answers I want to give you, but maybe we can do like the two-part thing. But go ahead. Go to Chris. He deserves airtime.
Yeah, ask me something. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, Chris, I just, I would like to know about your involvement. It sounds like you're involved with Q, and that's awesome. And just, what made you interested in Tom's story? And just tell me, I'd like to hear from you.
Well, I've been following Q basically since the beginning, since November 2017 when it started popping up on YouTube. I've always been into the truth movement. It started when I was searching Tupac's death to see if he was really alive or dead. I ended up tracing down his son and his daughter, became friends with both of them. And Q's just opened my eyes so much. And I seen Tom on Red Pill 78, and I watched the show. I never really watch a live show, usually because they're 2-3 hours sometimes. But I watched that whole show with Tom, and I messaged him afterwards because he gave his phone number out. And then I added him on Twitter. I've been kicked off 13 times for speaking the truth.
Man.
I'm getting attacked every day on Twitter, one way or another. But I was really interested in Tom's story. And now that, we're to where we're at now, it's kind of funny that it's a full circle. We went a full circle when, the Matrix opened up everybody's eyes, and now the truth movement is helping reveal that the Matrix was stolen. It's just amazing to me how it's growing so much. And this COVID-19 thing basically helped a lot of truthers because there's more people learning since they're home from work. So it's just, it's a really amazing story. Everything's going on. I've gained 3,000 followers since last night on Twitter. And I really love doing this for Tom. I'm not out for want money or none of that. I just want to help get his story out. I can't imagine losing 2 of my sons. I have 5 kids. I can't imagine losing that over a movie. That's heartbreaking.
Well, and we know that, I don't think this is talked about because, of course, these are, it's censored. It's kind of like a catch-22, but Twitter and Facebook and Google all openly stated that they are censoring dissenters. They are censoring people, and especially QAnon, because, of course, people who follow Q, which they're known as QAnon, they are speaking out and they're sharing with others and they're sharing the news of what's going on. And so, it's crazy that censorship is like it's just what happens now, And of course, also, I think a lot of people don't know because of the censorship that, the president has taken that on, and there is probably going to be a lawsuit or 2 against these media giants for acting like publishers and actually, removing content. So I'm really glad to be able to talk to someone who follows Q and put this, Tom, your experience and your story into the context of this Q movement, because I think that this is about to blow open and it's just so aligned. So thank you.
Too. It's like, well, thank you so much. I love you're articulate, you're focused, you have a warmth to your tones. It's like we're all designed for what we need to do. And is there a higher power? I still believe there is, and I believe that higher power is outwitting the powers that want to have power.
Yeah.
As crazy as it sounds, I really believe it. I've seen so many synchronicities and things happening. When I wrote the Immortals piece, the Matrix story, it just came. It just flowed. And it would be like a scene here, a scene there, a scene there. And it came out to 120 some pages. Perfect, like a minute a page in Hollywood terms for, film. And so everything, and now it's all turning out to be true. It was like a Pelican Brief on steroids, right? A Pelican Brief where they, just happen to hit it just right. And you got Elon Musk stuff in there. You've got the series in there, clearly. You got, like I was showing on Twitter to Chris too, some of these matchup things that are layered on each page. They're layered. So you got 190 matchups that Wachowski's saying they want to do Jackson Neck for real. Where did it all come from? And then the whole theme is based on basically man trying to outwit God, and God outwits man. God allows man to try to outwit him. What an amazing thing that the Wachowskis did not understand, and Joel Silver did not understand. In fact, they claim in the articles that the Suits didn't understand it, the Wachowskis didn't understand it, Joel Silver didn't understand it, but they thought it was cool. So the only way they could steal it was to lift the images that were cool from the work, like the train station scene. And I think it's fascinating, liquid mirrors, that if you take the red pill, you can pass through the liquid mirror, are the security devices in the original story copyrighted that I just held up to you, right? So it's like, it's all there, but they didn't understand the layers. So they ripped the spine out by lifting images they thought were cool, stick in the sex and the violence and the get rid of the central sympathetic character, which is me, modeled after myself, because I'm writing about my own life and using myself as a model so I can make my first work, my door opener work, make sense. You're going to model up yourself to make it work, flesh it out, right? Your protagonist. So, and then they make Keanu Reeves model to be after me. He even dressed the same way I dressed when I was at Robertson's organization. The white shirt and the black tie.
Well, and I think, you're getting into something that, I keep bringing this up because it's something that I'm very interested in, but this idea of this psychosis. And I think that, you even brought up, you're whispering through art. So obviously your sort of approach to, because I've watched all these movies over the years and I'm always very critical in watching them. And I'm like, hey, what's going on here under the line of what you're supposed to pay attention to? And I my theory was either that the people who are making these films are either warning people or they're trying to desensitize people to these images and themes and whatnot. And I think you're coming from a place obviously of warning people. Now I want to look at, so the Wachowskis, I find this fascinating. They targeted you because you found out about the Christian Coalition sex ring at Disney. But the story itself and how they tweaked it and what it ended up as, the Matrix, is in and of itself some sort of warning or something. And what I suspect is that their psychosis of having been involved, obviously, in this, from what you say, is like, it's almost like a cry for help, but a subconscious cry for help in a way. And I want to look at that with you and get your take on that idea.
No, I love it. Because you know what? Tell me, and steer me back if I'm not answering your question properly, because we're talking about layers here, lots of layers, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I intended, layered thinking. I wanted audiences to engage in layered thinking, layered feeling. It's okay to do that. When we go through adolescence, we learn how to be layered. That's why adolescents have all these layered feelings. It's to make us dynamic adults. Instead, we dull ourselves down to one feeling at a time so we feel safe around one another. It's not crazy to have layered feelings and layered thinking. When you do that on stage in a performance, people are like, oh, wow, God, that was a great performance. And directors get it. So let's start having a society where we have layered feeling and layered thinking and layered creativity. It's great. That's dynamic. We'll never get bored. We'll be happy to live for immortality then. But the thing is that the ending, the Matrix story was actually, I lost my train there a second because I do go on tangents on this because that's how a writer works. But give me the question one more time again. Sorry.
Basically, I wanted to look at, and I totally get it, it's a really dense topic, but I wanted to get your take on, my theory is that the Wachowski brothers, if, like, just assuming everything you're telling us is true, which, and I believe you, is that it's almost like they are subconsciously, putting out this movie that, like, almost just like, hey, everybody should pay attention, something is very wrong here. It's like they're unintentional. Yeah.
No, they weren't trying to warn anybody of anything. What they were doing was trying to take, like the Dooley character I have, which is like the architect character, Dooley off-brand. He is the one that wants to be clever and take credit for everything. Now, set yourself this way. Take it from my world here. The Wachowskis are only about being clever, only about being famous, like what Dino enticed them with. Dino Laurentiis wined and dined them saying beautiful women, fame, riches. So that's the Wachowskis. They're not trying to warn you of anything.
Do you think that they're
9/11 insert in that second graphic? That's because in mind, you have the false flag and the guy's trying to warn you too. It's all about, like the guy that contacted me that told me about those entries with the high school and everything. He said it's all about them trying to be clever. They hate you, Tom. They don't understand the work. So
Okay,
they're not trying to give you any warnings at all. They're trying to lift the images they think are cool, get credit for it. And they didn't care about giving a satisfying ending or making the story interesting. They thought it would fail. And they actually, if you look at the shorts and stuff, they're said to have been mocking the work on set. There's this thing where they're called over to direct something like, oh, what, which is like Keanu Reeves is. It's like, what? So it's like they didn't even care about the work. They thought it was going to fail. When it succeeded and worked because the images were lifted, somehow it conveyed the message, which fascinates me as the original writer and conceiver of those images, that it actually got through somehow. Then they were told they had to do 2 and 3. They didn't want to. And so they actually wrote a second version of Matrix that never saw light of day. And what's interesting in that one, they put Gregory as this anti-Neo that's forged by the Smiths to take on Neo, another Neo that's anti-him. Greg is Greg Mazer. Gregory is the guy that I finished the battle sequences with, and is one of the ones I have testimony from that, yeah, Tom created this in '93. So they're mocking me that way too. And it shows a lot of the same stuff being lifted, but they didn't, it was so bad. It opens with this motorcycle scene where it's like racing on this motorcycle and it dissolves in the air as they go through the air, Trinity and him, and it didn't go anywhere. So they scrapped it and used my exact script, and that's what the insiders are saying, exact script with a visual storyboard to do 2 and 3. That's why the architect comes in and all this other stuff. But that's what they're going off of. And in fact, you have this article, I think a lot of fans are aware of this too, or intellectuals too, that Wachowski say everybody on set said to blow it up. Why would you have that debate if you have a polished script? If why are you debating the ending if it's already there and you got union people sitting around, they're being paid union wages across the board here, waiting to finish the project? Why did the argument ensue how to end it? And they're saying everybody said to blow it up. Obviously, you're working off the script with that 20-foot rule that you're not allowed to be within 20 feet or you're fired of the Wachowskis, because you'll see the script in hand with a storyboard. Now people are coming forward saying, yes, that's what happened. So you've got this thing going on where that's the case, and they don't know how to end it. So what the Wachowskis do, they didn't listen to everybody saying blow it up. They thought, well, we got to be clever. So they kept my exact sequence of endings, and the little girl in theirs didn't matter. But the little girl in mine is essential. And the balancing the equation, you got one of the reasons it's voted one of the worst 11 films sequels of all time is because the architect and the oracle are just babbling about what it means and how you balance the blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, because they're making it up as they go along off the visual storyboard in my screenplay. But in mine, what's that?
Oh, I'm sorry, you had, and I just was going to ask you that same thing about the balancing of the equation, and because you had said that there was something about battery power with relation to this.
Yeah. You know where battery power comes from is the idea that they lift, like, remember how they lifted images? It'll all make sense to audiences once you understand this concept. Okay, so they are lifting images they think are cool, right? All right, well, let's see where you can go through my screenplay and just pick them all out. But I don't know how well I'm holding this up, but there's the cryogenic pods, all the cryogenic containers, right? And what's happening is the architect's bringing back his top 100 in mind with secondaries, people who physically match those top 100 to be brought back since they've solved immortality and formed the mortal program, which will create our one world society by offering different officials and their families entrance to the immortal program to make a one world society, buy off everybody around the world. And so what's happening is he's bringing back his top 100 on test subjects. That's why you have a field of pods. Now, the Wachowskis thought it was a cool image, so they want to lift the image. Now, how they make sense of it? They make it about battery power. Wachowskis, you have a pea brain between you. Because what's happening is, and I'll say that right out, I am passionate and angry at them. Because the thing is this, that's treating audiences as dumb. All those pods and saying that that's for battery power, you can hook up cattle and you don't have to worry about free will, and you get a lot more power from their engines, right? So it's stupid. But they were mocking me by holding up the battery. They hated my work, so it was all full of mocking images and jokes, dumbing down the scenes, saving on the budget, and ruining the story and ripping out the spine. In mine, the cryogenic containers are the architect bringing back his top 100 for our time to form that one world society for an immortal program. Our characters offered that program, but his family's not allowed to follow. You're setting up for the train station scene, right? The reason the train station scene occurs, it's not just a subplot. You got family pushing their kids forward, screaming all over the place, take my child, right? They're doing that because they want to get their kids into a better life. But what's happening if they get their kids in that program? What am I talking about? They're going to end up in sex rings. They're going to end up being abused by the people in the program. They're not going to have a good life, but the people don't know that. They're living in terror and destroyed cities outside the program. So they're going to put them into that, thinking that's their only chance, but they can't follow, right? And so they're begging anybody who's in the immortal program to take them, including our character, who can pass through the liquid mirrors because they took the red pill. They can't. So they're pushing their kids, take them, right? And where does that scene come from? And this really pisses me off from the Wachowskis. They ruined the heart and soul of the piece. No one can understand it. It amuses me that 30,000 entries basically of like, what does the Matrix mean? Even intellectuals and scholars, you can't figure it out unless you put it back the way the images were back in the original story. You're never going to figure it out. You're looking through a filter of a pea-brained duo that can't figure out how to even tie their shoes and take a bathroom at the same time.
And I think it's like
So,
also
yeah.
they take, if you're taking something and you're tweaking it in these ways that might seem small, it removes the meaning, it removes the value. I mean, yeah. And
one
then,
image, one image lifted. I went through things where people said, well, why not move this over here? Do you know how hard it is on a tight piece to move even a scene or an element 1 point over? Because if you're working in layers, it's all laced together. So they end up saying, oh, it wasn't meant to be one. Please, somebody take the Wachowskis and put them in a barn. Don't let them make Matrix 4. They're just snowing you. They have other writers writing it with them and for them. They even said they want to work it off the Matrix world now because they don't have a clue.
Well,
the thing is, go ahead.
I see, to me, I mean, and I respect your point of view completely, and you too, Chris. And I think from my perspective, what I can add to that, I do see a parallel here where the Wachowskis, if they're taking your script and they're bastardizing it and putting it out as their own and all of this, that there's this element of the battery of them taking your creative power to imagine reality and to imagine a story, and they're taking that and perverting that into their own, version of that reality. And if you look at that right there, it's a parallel to what, like human beings, if you've ever studied the law of attraction, human beings have the ability to manifest reality. And I don't know if the listeners know about that or how much they believe that, but I myself have seen it happen over and over and over again in my own life. And so I feel that it's true. But if you look at the mainstream media and how they're reporting lies, they constantly misquote the president and his administration and just all of it. If you're paying attention, you know
that's
what
they do.
about.
That's what they do.
Well,
you know what?
They're taking our creative ability and they're channeling it into this negative vision, and that is what I see there. Maybe there's another element there to that battery kind of thing.
You're right. Look at it right here. You're absolutely right. Look at this right here. I'm going to open up this page. I'll send you the graphics. I'll send them to you. Even the silver pen, right? I don't know if you can see it, but even the silver pen is monumental in the screenplay. Anything that I put in, even if I just like burped it out, right? Like red pill, blue pill. That was just a device to make it so that I can have a logical explanation, a working logical explanation, how you enter the program. So they take it and make it this universal thing. The silver pen was simply showing that the agents are being controlled by the main agent, the Smith agent, through a room of monitors, right? I mean, you can see it all there. Of course, we're going to win when we get actual fair due process. And that's why they supply all these attorneys to throw it in the wife. But the thing is, the silver pen represents the loss of our creativity taken out of our hands. And then they have the architect holding the silver pen. Of course they do, because that's him taking our creativity. He holds our creativity. And then they even did this. They even did this where they said that in theirs, they said that the architect had 6 generations of Zion. Garbage, guys, garbage. And then they say on their fan page that fans said on their fan page, it should only be 1. And they go, oh yeah, I'm so glad. Keep giving us ideas. Keep answering because you're right. That was a mistake. It should have been 1. In the Immortals, it's only 1 generation of Zion because the architect is going to balance the equation by using Zion. And they make this whole thing babbling about, I don't know how to balance the equation. Humans have free will. What are we going to do with their free will? It's already answered by the architect in mind. He knows that humanity has free will. He's harnessing that free will, and he's using the only character in history that will make it possible for him to have that free will given over to him freely. That's why the Christ figure has to be used at the end. And what they did was they turned Neo into mocking with a cross on his chest and dying, where earlier in their versions, they said Neo couldn't die. In mine, no. Neo is watching the face-off of the identical figures, because the architect reforms himself to look like the classic image of Christ. He thinks he's going to fool God, basically, because he doesn't think God exists, just like Robertson, and pull off this whole return of Christ thing as he being Christ. Why is that important? How does that balance the equation? Because the architect in a real life world situation, if he had immortality, what is his biggest problem? What is his biggest problem? If you're immortal and you're the boss of everything, your biggest problem is going insane from lack of stimulation for your mind.
Yeah, I was going to say boredom.
Boredom, that's it, boredom. In fact, the Star Trek series with Christopher Nolan picked up on that. Christopher Nolan's a baddie in this, who did Interstellar. He actually took the key scene that I said that Wachowski's never used to put in Interstellar and butchered it with the little girl as aged. You know, he comes back and sees a little girl aged. And to the library of memories I had is just books on the shelf. Christopher Nolan is an idiot too. Sorry. They're dumb. But the thing is, they just lift the images and they bastardize them unless they think the audiences are dumb. But the thing is, how to balance the equation, right? The field of pods. Okay. To balance the equation of free will, in mind, the architect already knows that he's going to utilize that free will by using a historic figure, Christ. We are conditioned to give our free will over to Christ, are we not, when Christ returns in Western civilization often? If Christ returned right now, we are taught from baby up that we're to give glory and worship to Christ when Christ returns. The architect's got it down pat. So what does he do? He keeps a segment of society in Zion, pure, untainted, to come out at the right time to worship him as Christ after he purges the world with an Armageddon and purges his agents, because his agents aren't needed anymore. The agents are needed at first to stimulate the architect's mind. The agents are to cause trouble. The agents are to do things to mess up the world and hurt people and cause terror and pain, rape and pillage. They are, because that helps stimulate the mind. In mind, the Neo character is mentored for the new world in our new society in the program by who? Not the Oracle, but by Smith. The architect does this on purpose because he knows that Smith hates Neo and Neo hates Smith, and that feeds his need. That feeds his stimulation, because they're not allowed to take each other out. And so he's supposed to indoctrinate him in the new world and tells him, your daughter's in a nursing home. The relationship between a daughter and Neo is integral for a satisfying ending. It also goes along the line of balance the equation, because in mine, Neo's told when he's brought back to life out of the cryogenic, out of the pods, that he is Smith, that he sees first, that he is not allowed to see any family. The only family left is Brittany, or the Sati character. And of course he's going to go. As a father, he's going to go see her, right? What happened before was his friend had said that his house had been firebombed and died. Friendship's a very important thing in this. My Neo was bugged, just like the interrogation scene. He was bugged, so he couldn't talk to his best friend, pushes him out of the car, goes to the simulation where he's going to enter the program, which is actually an actual, they even used it, the truck devouring the car like a predator. And he's frozen dead with his injuries. He's brought back in the future, and brought back by the Smith character. Architect's rules, what he wants, simulate his mind. And he's told his daughter's in a nursing home with Alzheimer's, 76 years old, the mind of a 6-year-old when he left her, when she had said, "Daddy, please don't, come back. You come to my birthday party, don't go." And so what happens is he comes back, goes to see her in the nursing home. She has Alzheimer's, and she says a very important line they never included, but Christopher Nolan, jerk, used it in Interstellar, used it up. They always want to use up the rest of the story. They keep saying, Joel Silver said, we hope we use up the rest of the story. So Christopher Nolan used it in Interstellar and did it badly. And the idea was, she says this, "Daddy," she's a 76-year-old. This scene always got me. Got Greg too, who worked with me on the battle sequences. It always gets me. Burn scars on her face. Obviously the house was firebombed. Keep in mind, he's going to relive these memories through Smith's memories when he downloads Smith's memories and blends with them later to find the dome in the Cortex building, right? He's going to be reliving what Smith felt. That's why they did Sense8, Wachowskis. They love the idea. So what happens is you've got him, she's got burn scars. She's saying, "Daddy, I knew you'd come back. A man pulled me out of the fire." Now, Neo's starting to think in audiences at this point, if they do it properly, when you see this restored Immortals original Matrix story, you're going to see this happen, this sequence. As a father, you would feel this pain. That means Neo's thinking the Smith at least did something good. He knew he was at that house. He at least saved his daughter from the flames. That's what he thinks. So now the architect is stimulated further because we have this feeling of, oh, I owe this guy, but I hate his guts. Meanwhile, Smith wants to kill him, but doesn't have the green light to, but we'll get later, he's told. So you've got this perfect thing for the architect Justin Mitz duo, right? Stimulation of the mind. Meanwhile, the agents are going to go around doing all this stuff. So what happens in the scene that I loved is that the little girl, or his older wife or daughter now, aged, is touching his face like a 6-year-old, tenderly. Daddy, I need you to come back. And he's like, you missed my birthday party. And he says something like this. You'd say anything at that point. Do you want a birthday cake? He's like, yes. An orderly comes in and says, get out of here. You're confusing her. She says, Daddy, please don't leave me again. It still chokes me up. So he scoops up this 76-year-old woman, busts by the orderly, goes down the hall, is apprehended by doctors and orderlies, and he looks down. She's died with a smile and a tear on her face. Can I just say the Wachowskis are bastards for stripping that out? The Wachowskis are bastards for saying that a little girl is just a subplot. The Wachowskis are bastards for ruining the satisfying ending for a world where 30 years ago, basically, or something, where people have died never knowing the answer, and the message that was lift everybody, and the work was to be for everybody. The Wachowskis should be put on a wheel and burned.
Well, and I can totally understand your feeling and the passion.
I hate it. I despise them.
Oh yeah.
And to mock me in the work when my sons are murdered. But the thing is, after that girl's died, he steps outside, and what's the cover shot for The Matrix? He sees the 3 people in the trench coat staring him down. He broke the Smith rules. But there's an icy moment. He moves on. Next scene is train station scene. What's at the train station scene? A little girl being pushed forward with the same name, Brittany, which they changed to Sati. Take her, she's your daughter. While people are screaming to take their kids, right, into the programs with the liquid mirrors, security devices you can pass through because you have the red pill. So what happens is you've got that scene, which Wachowskis took 2 scenes of the train station and made them into one because they didn't care about the continuity. In the future train station scene, which Neo's trapped between worlds, the Oracle sends the Trinity character to get him out between that because she's not cut for the program. He is. She gets him through the silver mirrors by taking him through while distracting Garb with a kiss. So it's like, I'm telling you, if their attorneys are going to keep throwing the talking point, you lost, get over it, blah, 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 and there's no similarities, BS.
Well, and we know right now, I mean, with the judge who's still pushing for the Russian collusion thing, we obviously know he's stepping outside of the bounds of being a judge. And I think that that's getting national attention right now. People are starting to realize.
You know what the Judge Klausner was appointed by Bush and Robertson? Robertson's Law and Justice Center through Jay Sekulow, who's actually Trump's attorney, trying to misguide him. Sekulow and the Law and Justice Center was called Bush's Dream Team. They put Judge Gary Klausner in place. First appointment for California was Judge Klausner. Judge Klausner, even Rankin, the supplied attorney, says on this transcript and tape I have, it's the worst pick. He's big business, so go on summary judgment right away. You won't look at the facts. What's interesting is in Klausner's summary judgment, you have Sophia Stewart's is 56 pages long or 60-some pages. Mine is a page and a half where Klausner says it is not worth going into a discussion about the matchups. That's how he gets around the matchups. Keep in mind, summary judgment is supposed to be if there's anything leaning in favor to the plaintiff, you go to trial. And in fact, the depositions, the court, only had depositions of me, not them. They wouldn't let me have depositions of them. So only of me. A court reporter and also the videographer both said, this is fascinating. You're fascinating. It's an honor to meet you. Indicative of what the jury would have done. Just one jacks the neck is right all through that thing, and Elon Musk stuff would have put us as a win.
Yeah, I actually think you have a good case, and I think that there's a lot of stuff. It's like a confluence coming where it's the right timing, like you said. Now, I want to go to something that I know that it's sensitive, but you have brought it up a couple times, and I'd like to just ask you so that the listeners and the watchers can understand. What have you been threatened with, and if you do want to talk about it, you don't have to. Obviously, what happened to your 2 sons?
No, I think we need to. We need to talk about it. Because what you're looking at is it's unbelievable. I made some notes actually, if I can find them, because it's very important. It's so involved. I wanted to answer that question properly. So I have to
ask. I told you I was going to ask hard-hitting questions. I
love it. I just in case you're going to ask, I want to do that because they'll say like, oh, he reads off a script. No, for the first time, I'm actually going to try to look at notes, but I don't look off a script. How would I know what was coming?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of stories. A lot of different people have tried to come forward and said, and I know that the Me Too movement was one of those instances where people are actually speaking up about, and then a lot of people say that they have been threatened, and then you look at, there's a list that I can't remember the woman's name, but she's got a list going of over 100 really, really high level researchers and doctors and scientists who've actually been weirdly, mysteriously killed, and they were right on the verge of announcing a big discovery and like that kind of thing, and missing 411. And I mean, there's Yeah, but anyway, I
Well,
wanted.
that's the thing right now.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. What's going on right now is they're killing their own. Epstein was killed by his own. Mike Lang, watch for Mike Lang. I think Mike Lang's going to end up dead, murder-suicide, and probably Becca too. But the thing is, they're trying to keep him off the radar, right? But the problem is, just like with Bob Iger happened in interviews, we hold the power now. They're actually calling and saying, we have the power. You've won the chess game. So when I mentioned Bob Iger falls next day, is what happened. So now it's like we're an asset or something. It's a whole gray, weird relationship, just like Neo and Smith in my piece. You know, it's like hate, love, whatever. But it's like what's going on is those that reveal the cabal are being eliminated as loose ends. But they can't get rid of me right now. They wouldn't get rid of Chris. They wouldn't touch you because they said interviews have made it happen. They said, before I had contacts saying to me on tape, I have it on tape, they know you're concerned for your last son's safety, Aiden, right? Meanwhile, Terry Joyce or these other people like Sophia Stewart, that are plants from, Plans for Hollywood, they're trying to say that Aiden never existed. And it's like, what? Because he made this amazing tribute video, you should see. But right now they're killing off their own. So and what is this? They failed in their job. Right now, my sister's afraid for her life, apparently, is what I'm getting down through the channels, is because if she doesn't destroy me, she'll be destroyed. She actually said that to my mom. If Tom's not evil, that means I'm evil. If I don't destroy him, then I'm evil. So yeah, she even said to my mom, basically, if I associate with Tom or help Tom, I'm gonna lose my jobs and my family. So that's how hard they play the stakes, right? So they destroy you that way, but right now they're killing off their own. So look for top heads to fall still, and look for others to be actually suicide murdered. I would not be surprised if Mike Lang of Disney died, because he blew it. And they use doubling too, like they'll use a double to do their work. There's 2 Diane Bellises. And the attorneys that were trying to throw my case said that they tried to send me to the second Diane Bellis, right? Do you know that Becca Northcutt now has the name Becca B. Lynn? That's a model's name. So she's now the double for that model.
This is like a slight tangent, but I have to bring this up. I just have to. I don't know if anyone's noticed this, but Britney Spears is not Britney Spears. That is a different woman. I don't care what anyone says. That is a different woman.
That's how they play.
Absolutely different. Yeah. No. So what happened to Britney anyway?
So he did the same with Mike Lang. Mike Lang they have this article that it was the multi-millionaire, whatever, from Southern California that got the properties up in Spokane, Washington, which is called the Playground of Hollywood. They're going to try to debate that, but that's what even Becca told me it's called, right? Because all the laws are lax there for them. So what happens is they get whatever they want there. In fact, Guantanamo Bay civilian interrogators came from Spokane, Washington. So what's interesting is, they got doubles on Mike Lang too. Mike Lang, Zion, all that stuff. And it's interesting because we just found out Mike Lang had sent emails to Becca, not only the one with his bed and the shaving kit and his property and saying, move in with me for 60 days, right on my birthday, which is supposed to have a more traumatic effect on you, holidays, birthdays, things like that.
Yeah.
He also is sending her an email from Steve Gundry, Dr. Steve Gundry, who does the Red Batch, which is about the Immortal program. So only elite are going to be given it, not the poor. And that's the Immortal story. And isn't it interesting that Joel Silver, through Netflix, all the attorneys for Warner Bros. Went to Netflix to be their attorneys. That's the laundering machine now, is Netflix, who's also had deals with Harvey Weinstein, Disney, and Mike Lang with Miramax. So what you got now is Netflix is the baddie. That's the laundering machine now. Netflix is the bad one. I would encourage people to get rid of your subscriptions for Netflix. Boycott them. They're the business now to rip off everybody. So Altered Carbon shows up on Netflix, of course. Joel Silver's the producer, and they draw out of USC, just like Sophia Stewart out of USC, failed writers from USC. They draw out the director for that. And the premise for it is that the rich have immortality, the poor use as pawns in the future. And that's exactly the Immortal story. So by having all my notes and stuff in the Throne case, Joel Silver is able to finally get it right with Altered Carbon. And what's the big claim for Altered Carbon as being the director's real claim of the unique material? Nudity, male frontal nudity. Really, that's your best? That's it?
Well, yeah. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, the balance of the equation, though, I did want to finish that for you.
Yeah.
And Chris, jump in with anything you want to say, too. I don't want to just have you sit there like a
Yeah, earlier about the censorship, you was talking about a couple years ago, I posted on Facebook because Q said, watch out for false flags.
Yeah.
And I posted on Facebook, watch out for false flags. Well, the next day, a bomb goes off in Houston. So had 6 cops come to my house. They basically body slammed my son. He has the same name. They thought it was his
Whoa.
post. He was saying, "Oh, that ain't me. That ain't me. That ain't me." So they just body slammed him. I see the post in her hand. I said, "Well, that's mine. What's wrong with it?" And they said, "Oh, well, you got guns? Are you in a terrorist group and all this stuff?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just a patriot following QAnon." And they said, "Well, what's that?" I said, "It's the NSA." So they started saying, "Oh, well, we're going to send the FBI." I said, "Well, I don't care. I'm a patriot. I ain't doing nothing wrong. I ain't breaking no laws. I'm not in no terrorist group." But the FBI never came.
Well, I want to talk about trauma a little bit more. And again, I warned you I was going to be focused on this dark stuff. But, I just see, I see a lot of, there's a thread of trauma running through here, and it's like they're perpetrating the trauma against their victims, these pedophiles, these human traffickers. But I think it also traumatizes them, and or they were traumatized before they became these traumatizers. Yes. It's like the chain of child abuse, down through the generations.
Right.
And so I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. And then I know that you were still, Tom, answering the question about what happened to your sons. Obviously, you don't have to go into that.
Yeah, I have the little girl. Why the little girl matters. Little girl, like I backtrack. Little girl matters, and I have the my mind thinks in layers. Balance the equation. I've got the Paver Robertson, why is he egotistical, and we're gonna do another show. Yeah,
I would be happy to do another show.
Answer, but it's good. We're good. Go with the flow, lead the train. So.
I mean, the main questions I have that I put at the end of my list of questions that I really would like to give you a chance to answer is basically, if you win your case that you are going to get and that is going to be properly tried, what are you going to do next? And what will the Christian Coalition and Pat Robertson do if you win?
I think Robertson's going to curl up in a ball and curse God and die, because it's like he actually blames me for his loss of the presidential campaigns. He had 2 running this consecutive nation. And he actually wrote a book that God said he's going to win. He was going to win. He didn't win. So he blames me. I was the one that screwed up because of what happened with Sove on the trip. He blames me for the loss of his Christian run for the presidency. That also caused him to hate God more. So
God didn't give him the presidency, right?
Yeah, so he was going to be God. And what's interesting is he actually has an attorney named Damian T. Horn. That guy was drummed out of special services or special forces by Schwarzenegger. And this Damian T. Horn, he chooses the name Damian T. Horn. Who's Damian T. Horn? Robertson's attorney is Damian T. Horn. That's the Antichrist name in Omen for the little boy at the president's son when he turns around and looks at you. So they're broadcasting in plain light. They want to be the Antichrist. They want to take this world over because they hate God. They hate the idea of God, and they think we're stupid to believe in God.
Well, and I think, that brings us to kind of like the elephant in the room. And I think that we're talking about Christianity in this context. And, I think that a lot, I've seen a lot of things say, like, this is Satanism, these are Satanists. And then, people roll their eyes and say, no, that's not true. But, I think there's a lot of evidence that would at least lead one to, sincerely question or start investigating on one's own. Like, what is going on in Hollywood? Is there a satanic cabal? I mean, there's so many people that are saying they've been.
To answer that because here's my take on it from contacts. Like, I have contacts that tell me from Disney, Spielberg, things like that answer my questions. They actually answer my questions. And the idea is that if I would go and speak it, then I'd look nuts.
Right.
But that's worked against them now, because I paid attention like a good student. I actually took the notes, recorded calls. So I actually know why things were done. Like, one of the questions was, why would they do this to me? And they go, Tom, you have to understand it's all about power. I said, well, what about writers writing something to lift others through art as a service? She says, you gotta understand, they don't understand that it's all about power. Well, why do they do this to my children and kill my family? They go, because here's a chilling quote. This is right from the tape. You dared to face them down. And it's like, wow, okay. So it's like, and then, I mean, it goes on and on. There's so many layers to this, but ask your question again, because I go in layers. As a writer, I go layer, and then I'm down that, totally devoted to that track. And then I need to be, again, what the main source was.
Well, so, and and this is I totally get it, because, I'm one of those people, I can connect a lot of things that people wouldn't necessarily agree there's connection. I'm like, no, I see the connections. So I get it. And I think, part of my question is, I want to channel for the viewers and for us here now, the power of creative imagination, and asking you, you know, what's going to happen when you win.
Oh, good.
And
Yeah.
because
good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Cause I focus totally on the avenue. Like when you write, you focus down the avenue you're going, and then you put total focus on it, and you'll forget where the genesis was. You follow the trails you write. That's how good writing happens. But the idea is, when this is over, I want to give my copyright to every man, woman, and child, except the Wachowskis and those that were the baddies in this and sellouts. I don't want to give it to them. But the work was intended to spark ideas and creativity, give the message, not everything has been done under the sun. I purposely left a lot of the backstory out that was in the story treatment. That's why the Warner Brothers doesn't want the story treatment brought up. It was actually submitted through James Boyd in Norfolk. He actually, the affidavit and the material submitted, where their attorney said he wouldn't have it, he had it. But I want to give that ownership to everybody. Therefore, you own the Matrix, and you can do your takes on it. Keep in mind that right now it was written that way. What are the Wachowskis saying? They're writing from the Matrix world. Everybody's supposed to do it. Let's not have the Wachowskis do it. You do it. The Wachowskis are the lowest of the bottom of the barrel. They are the dregs that don't understand even how to wipe their butts. They couldn't write diaper diaries. What they need to do is stop writing and just get out of the picture. Warner Brothers actually has other writers writing it for them, I just was told. So they're not really writing this story. They're the figureheads. And why were they chosen? Because they're dumb, because they'll be loyal, because they're greedy, and that's why they're chosen. That is exactly why they're chosen. Same thing with Sophia Stewart. Failures at what they did, not smart, corrupted with dirt on them. That's why your material is so bad when it's lifted, because that's the ones that are loyal to the ones employing them to steal. Why did Dina De Laurentiis wine and dine the Wachowskis when the mom said they failed at everything? They failed at painting, contracting business. They failed in school and dropped out. All they have is Carnivore and Plastic Man. Still, nobody wants to do that work. And they're still trying to push it as original work. Why did Dina De Laurentiis wine and dine them, promising them beautiful women, riches, and fame when they didn't have anything? Because they were creating somebody that would be desirable, that would be loyal, to steal the work that really wanted the work. Exactly. And there's a meeting that happened. There's actually a meeting that happened where Joel Silver had to explain the work. When there's an article in 1995 where the interviewer or whatever was smart enough to actually take this down. He says that Joel Silver ends up explaining it to the suits, while the Wachowskis go back to a back room and can be overheard screaming in the phone. They can't do that. It's in the article. What was happening? From what I was told, the suits were considering giving the work back to the original author.
Well, Chris, I want to bring you in for a second again, too, about what you'd said earlier about QAnon. I wrote it down, and I really find that a fascinating comment, but I'll get to that in a second. I wanted to, oh, man, I knew this would happen at least once during this interview. I completely blank. I'm just going to go to what you'd said, Chris, and it'll come back to me what I wanted to say. You had said that QAnon is the NSA, and I'm just really fascinated. I've never heard anybody say that. We know that the so-called Patriot Act was the result of 9/11, you know, and that we know that the result of coronavirus was the removal of some of our constitutional rights, temporary, thank God. And then we know that with the riots, the so-called Black Lives Matter riots, we ended up getting removal of a lot of police protections and that kind of thing. And then, you know, I just saw I think it was either this morning or yesterday, Q dropped that there's proof that the BLM, the Black Lives Matter, is actually just it's a shell corporation to fund the Democratic Party, and there's actual documentation showing that, et cetera, et cetera. But I wanted to give you a chance to kind of explain more about that, if you wouldn't mind, Chris. Like, QAnon is the NSA. Tell us more.
Well, basically, we all came up, you know, we all figured that, let me think of this. We always understood that it's a group of less than 10 that knows who the real members are of QAnon. It's supposed to be less than 10 that knows. It's supposed to be 3 civilians and 7 military. That's what I've got. You know, since November 2017, that's basically what they've been pushing, that it was basically the NSA, just a small group though.
Yeah. And just for the viewers who actually don't know what Q is, because I get this question on Twitter, and I try to just help people, with what I know, which is, I don't know everything at all. But Q is the highest level of military intelligence there is. And so there's a group of patriots that are Q level intelligence, and they could be, I personally think they're a combination of active and retired military. And I do really like what you just said, that there's some civilians in there too, but they're basically, they're taking the one big stand that this planet has taken, maybe at least in this time. I think there have been other uprisings, but I think this is our big contemporary stand against this deep state. And I think that if people don't, I was asked this the other day, and it's like, oh God, what a question. What is the deep state? Well, we've been talking about, I think, elements of the deep state this whole interview. I think that what's going on, what Tom, you're being put through, and what a lot of people have been put through, it's an arm of the deep state. It's an aspect of this, basically this hidden shadow kind of agenda. And we've seen through Q's information that they've been dropping to the civilians, the population who's paying attention, that the Muslim Brotherhood and maybe other forces that are aligned with that kind of ideology are really just trying to take down the Constitution. And what does the Constitution represent? Well, freedom, rights, basic human dignity, and all of that. So
that goes back to Robertson's plan too. That was Robertson's plan.
To take all that away.
Yeah, you want to take that away. And that's why he wanted the false flag war to do it. And that's why the Immortals was a real hotbed, because it talks about the false flag in it.
Now, one question I had asked before, Tom, and you may have answered it, but I kind of, it slipped by me potentially, but who do you think Pat Robertson works for? Because I'm really interested, not necessarily in, who he specifically works for, but I do feel like, okay, Pat Robertson sounds like, from what you're telling us, that he is up there with a bunch of these other sort of bigwigs, and he's one of the top higher up players. Now, I've heard reference to what a guy called the Black Pope. I don't know anything about him, but I've heard that he's kind of up there. I've heard, of course, if we're in the queue, Chris, Obama has been implicated, Hillary, we've seen
right.
I think there's a lot of obvious evidence that she's implicated in some criminal activity, and the Clintons and stuff like that, with human trafficking and child trafficking and all that.
Well, it's a grouping. It's and it's kind of like a club, right? Think of it as a club, like Cross and Bones kind of thing. And what happens is Bill Gates is in on it, and it's really elite. It really comes down to like Alder Carbon kind of thing, what Joel Silver is taking from the Immortals. Elite deciding they want a sustainable world where they're the heads and the others are subservient. What's chilling is it's a lot like Dr. Strangelove. They want multiple beautiful women for the guys and eliminate the other guys as competition. Robertson hates men, and he fears beautiful women. So really, in his society, beautiful men and beautiful women, or beautiful boys and beautiful women, fit his plan for the future. And if you're a beautiful woman, then you have a place in the future world. And that's what the Immortals reflects too, because he wants that. He's lustful. He's almost like I don't want to mock the term wrong, but nerd. He's like a nerd with still an adolescent fantasy, where he gets to with the power, he wants to reshape the world along with Disney guys and things like this, to a world where they just are the head, not the tail. You'll hear him say that phrase a lot, the head, not the tail, and not be the second class. And so he wants to have power over all people, and he can use God in that way of saying a theocratic society, where then laws are suspended and you use the biblical law. And who interprets that biblical law? Robertson. So you're heading to that architect. And the Hollywood guys, you have unlikely bedfellows, like the guy from, what's that prime minister from Israel, who begins with the N anyway, but he's in bed with Robertson too, because they both are, think about it, they're both propounding the idea of the chosen people. You can't run a world smoothly if one segment's claiming to be chosen. That means the others aren't. It just doesn't work. And you're seeing this start to surface again. And Robertson's calling his flock, dark flock, that God has chose them. They can do whatever they want, sin, rape, lust, anything. And all it does is make Jesus weep a little bit and increase his grace, his power. That's how he talks about it.
There's this interesting idea I was introduced to. Have you guys ever heard of John Lamb Lash? He's an independent investigator and writer, and I find his work incredibly important. But he talks about Christianity in a really different way than anybody I know of who is talking about it. But this idea of like the chosen and the dark flock and stuff like this. There's oh god, so I'm writing a book about like all this stuff basically, and that's one of the big reasons I was so excited and delighted to be able to talk with you about the Matrix, because it's just so aligned with the thesis of what I'm writing. And my experience really quickly, I had started my book in 2009 and I wrote for several years. I got all my thesis down on paper before doing any lick of research whatsoever, because I just wanted to get it on paper and not water it down.
Right.
And then I went and I was like, okay, who else might be talking about this? You know? And I knew I was onto something, but I had no idea how deep it went. And I got so frightened by what the research revealed to me. I stopped writing for 3 years. And I had to push myself very hard and push through my fear to start writing about this stuff again. So, and then, yeah, this is all really fascinating. I think that I don't have any further questions other than just drilling down into the Matrix and the robots.
I didn't do you justice. I didn't fully answer a lot of the questions because, I mean, let me just do this one for you maybe. The balance of the equation, I want to make sure that's clear. The Wachowskis had my nose, ow, I got a little cold thing. The Wachowskis don't make any sense of it. They just babble. That's why, like I said, it was voted one of the 11 worst sequels of all time, right? The balance of the equation, you have to put the little girl back in, obviously. And the idea is that the architect needs stimulation of the mind, right? So therefore, it's not about a field of pods for battery power. That was the Wachowskis mocking. The idea is that you have the agents to stir up stimulating situations by doing horrible things. And you know every choice people are going to make. So it raises the question, if we have free will, but an architect knows exactly what choices we're going to make due to cause and effect, first of all, is that free will? Second of all, how do you combat it? What you do is you act unpredictably. And so our character starts to do that, acts unpredictably. And the Morpheus, which to me is like Chris, came right in and saves the day, right? And when Neo is offered the red pill, not by Morpheus, he's offered the red pill by Smith. It's much better, I think, because he doesn't have a choice. If you don't take this red pill, you're going to die, your family will die, and you'll be labeled in the media as an arsonist, apparent schizophrenic, all that stuff. Be blamed for all these deaths. If you take the red pill, you'll enter the program, but your family can't follow. If you behave yourself, they may be able to be allowed to enter later. Welcome to a brave new world. Yeah. The blue pill is actually what his friend Alan Grace, or Morpheus, has the blue pill. Now, the blue pill is the bootleg drug designed by Underground to mimic the red pill so they can access program. And also what's interesting is it has terrible side effects where you age slowly but painfully. And the idea is you're taking that blue pill knowing you're going to suffer tremendously, but that's how you're going to make a difference, to keep lasting, to make that difference. And boy, do I feel like that's what we've done. Out of all the horror, quote, they put on myself and others like me, and what they're doing to Chris right now, it's like, you feel like you took the blue pill in that context, in that framework.
Chris, what are you going through right now?
Just a lot of my Twitter, being, I can't follow nobody half the time, being locked out constantly, the attacks on my phone, like trying to log into this meeting, my email is open most of the time. Well, I went to download, went to open up this and had to log in, and then it said I forgot my password. I had to jump through hoops just to get to this meeting. So I feel like they're attacking me on every aspect. I'm going to get another phone just because sometimes I can't make a phone call for hours, literally, ever since I started talking about this.
I think that kind of goes back to this idea that it could be the NSA. And I think, my interpretation of the NSA is a little different. And, when the Patriot Act was instituted, because, 9/11, that means we have to survey all citizens at all times. I don't think that that's a good thing. But we know that we're all being monitored, and yet, we kind of just accepted it. It's like we just sort of, we've taken this blue pill and just like hang out and do nothing. And it's, I'm just watching. And I just want to also bring up Antifa. This ties into something that you've been talking about, Thomas, where these people who are chosen, like the Wachowskis, as you describe them, it sounds like, and I was just watching, this just basically what you said just correlates with something I was just thinking about Antifa yesterday, and that's that it seems like in all the pictures that we see that they're these like teenagers or 20-year-olds, and they're like kind of antisocial types where they're misunderstood or they're sitting in their parents' basement kind of thing. I mean, no offense to these, to, you know, that type of person or whatever, but I'm just kind of noticing a pattern. And you know, it occurred to me, I had read something in the last few weeks about like the deep state always kind of offs its agents once they're done with them. And I think the Antifa, the people who make up Antifa for the most part seem like, it's like, wow, you could just kind of get rid of them once you're done using them as your kind of, you know, riot arm. You know, and they're taking over Seattle right now, which is totally ridiculous because they're kind of fringe, marginalized, you know, population that maybe not a lot of people are going to really stand up for.
We just made me think of something I never thought of before, if I may.
Yeah.
My sister is in a world now by selling out so badly. And she was one of the ones that, you know, Tom, you finish this. I'll be the one that's always there. And if there's no one else, I'm going to be there. And think of her world. She sold out so badly for reward. Riches became this arrogant monster. And her whole fear is that we're going to make a better world, that we're going to come through and win and create a world where everybody's free and children are safe. She doesn't want that world. If the world turns out where the children are safe, that means she loses everything. What a way to sell your soul. And it's like, that's her world right now. And she's afraid of it. She's going to do everything to stop good from happening. And that's what they do to people that were used to be really good people. She was a great person before. And then what you watch for is the arrogance. Once they sell out, they can't help showing off their worth. Like my cousin Todd did it terribly. Oh my God, if you look at the image of him with he's bragging about the Armani suits and posing with a super, like this kind of thing, looking up at him like a God shot. And it's like, he's talking about boss and how he's arguing the Supreme Court all at the same time. Dude, in the Broadway Awards, you just sold out. Then the arrogance comes in. Watch for the arrogance. That means they sold. I mean, we know their playbook. We know how it works and we know what to look for. And it can be disheartening, but then what the real lift is, what I call remnant in the screenplay, people like yourselves that have a heart, don't have a price. That's the best message you can send back to Hollywood and the FBI and CIA and NSA. And like my sister brags about sending Secret Service, right? We have black helicopters fly over. The best message we can send out is not everybody has their price. Some of us do have faith. Some of us will be loyal in our friendship. Some of us will do the right thing to help the children. Some of us will write as a service, unlike the Wachowskis. I wasn't wined and dined, promised women, money, riches. I wrote because I wanted to whisper through art. And the Wachowskis are going to steal it again because they think we're destroyed. But right now, the word I'm getting is fear. There is fear through their ranks. They're turning on their own. They're starting to kill their own. They can't kill the Wachowskis because they're too public. And what also, I'm going to mention this too. I risk doing it, but Keanu Reeves, wake up, people, please. Keanu Reeves is a nasty. He has been regroomed. They said that they had to use him. The Wachowskis didn't have a choice. They had to use him to save his career coming out of Johnny Lightning or something. And he had to be used as a Neo. That is not the man I would pick. He is not a hurting guy. He is rich. And in fact, they did this thing where they said, oh yeah, he did this greatest charity act. He gave everybody on set millions when my case was thrown. Millions to all the people on set. Excuse me, those are union wage people. There are people in those neighborhoods that are starving and poor that he could give millions to. And Harley Davidsons to the stunt team and all the millions to everybody that were made millionaires, quote, overnight. That is not an act of charity. That is laundering money through him. Keanu Reeves is a joke. He jokes on set. Even George Carlin said that he clowns around on set. He doesn't do his craft well. When it's time for the shot, he's like slapping butts, they said. And he comes up and does his shot and goes back and ruins every film he's in. I would never want him in my story. And the thing is that they use him. He's basically a yes man for Warner Brothers. Okay, you want me to say that I will only do The Matrix if the Wachowskis direct it? I'll say it. And then you do this thing to craft him, just like Goebbels in World War II, as this poster child of the saddest man in Hollywood. Please, I know a lot of people that are hurting that don't have as much money as he does, don't have as much grooming as he does. I just saw a short my son showed that shows him in the SpongeBob trailer for kids to indoctrinate him as his face coming live on the cartoon. They are pushing him loud to be a booster for the pedophiles. Start waking up about Keanu Reeves. He is not a good man. He is the poster child for the pedophiles.
And
He's not a good man.
I think a lot of what this, you know, I don't know if you guys saw Out of Shadows, but another sort of whistleblow thing on the Hollywood and stuff. But I mean, I've heard about this from other things too. But like, I see really clearly in Out of Shadows, they have a little screen graphic that just breaks down the word television to television. And then you, of course, look at the word programming, like all the TV programs that you watch, blah, blah. You know, we've sort of, these aren't new ideas, but I think that in my perspective, I think that let's just call it deep state, that these people you've dealt with, Tom, are a part of. And
Right.
Chris, you know who I'm talking about. It seems like they're counting on their programming of the American people and potentially the global, you know, I don't know as much about other countries. I live in America, but it seems like they're counting on the programming that they've been pushing at us for just decades and decades and decades.
Right.
Is basically, it's working to dumb us all down and make us sheep. And I think that there is a group of us that is that way. That's like, what do you mean there's a deep state? No, that's not what I saw on TV. So you're just a conspiracy theorist. But I actually think that there, and I'm seeing evidence is why I think this way, that there's a large and growing number of people who are awake and they're not following the program and they see it for what it is.
No. Well, you know what? I want to add something for you. It's not as complicated as people make out. They want you to think it's convoluted and complicated. It's not. And it's not that exciting when you hear the answer of why they're doing it. These are nerds. These are male nerds, insecure about their masculinity, that are afraid that women won't like them or be seen publicly that women don't like them. That's what it boils down to. It is that simple for a lot of these guys like Pat Robertson and Disney and those guys. So what I've learned is, I was told Robertson's biggest fear. Are you ready for Robertson's biggest fear? Like, what would I do when I'm done?
Yeah.
Robertson's biggest fear is that a woman who's pretty will be my partner, because that would look like somebody pretty is lifting me up. He doesn't care about anybody else that looks differently. If a woman who's pretty is with me saying, I like Tom, I like his heart, I'm lifting him, that's Robertson's worst nightmare. That's why every woman who's dated me was approached. That's why they provided Rebecca Northcutt, and they had a replacement for Rebecca Northcutt, Stephanie Tanner, who even told me she was indoctrinated with the ultra movement by Berkeley from a baby.
That's really fascinating.
Be my partner. Yeah. So that's his biggest fear. If Robertson's, and I had like doing music theater and things like that and doing roles. I had Miss America's interested in and dating me and things like that. And they'd always be approached. He is afraid of a woman who's talented, smart, and looks pretty saying, Tom's a good guy.
Well, you know what you're making me think of, and that's something that again gets back to the Christianity. And I just want to, you know, disclaimer, no disrespect to anyone's personal religious beliefs, because that's your own and you have a right to them. But I do see in Christianity, as practiced across America, I see that there's a huge sexual repression. And I look at what the priests did to the little boys when that scandal broke out a while ago, and they were simply relocated to poor parishes in other countries rather than actually put in jail for what they did to the children, which is absolutely, I mean, like, we should have all woken up then, right? I feel like it makes sense. It corroborates what you're saying, where you're saying, you know, really it comes down to these nerds that are really just, they don't know how to approach women. They don't know how to get a girlfriend. That's plausible, because if you look at the repression, I mean, what is this country? America is like 70% Christian. I mean, I do think that is an unhealthy thing. I think the idea that, you know, like, you know, the Christ was born without intercourse between humans. And then look at what seems to be at the heart of all of this stuff. A sex ring, like pedophilia. And that, what does that come from? That comes from, if not something else, some kind of psychosis we're not aware of, it comes from like total repression. Like, well, then I've got to do this in secret, and I've got to, you know, do it to other people to harm them and get power, or whatever they're thinking, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like, say I was with this lady, a girl named Otika Ball, right? And her uncle is Senator David Boren, right? He was a senior rep. And so Robertson freaked out. He actually said to her in face, not knowing who she was, "Are you working for Otika?" Like she was some kind of organization. She was approached so heavily and given so much misinformation in the end. She's actually the reason I wrote the Immortal screenplay. She allowed me, she was my muse. They approached her so hard and worked on her with like that Damien T. Horn and everything else. They got her to turn with Disney and stuff. And so she turned. It broke my heart. It destroyed me. And that was in '96. It broke my heart. And so that's how they got me. It's like the Christian balancing, you know, our own equation is a balanced relationship. It's what we thrive in. You celebrate together, you achieve together, things like that. People would come up to us all the time and go like, "Oh my God, I can't even hate you guys. You're so dynamic. I love you guys." And I was creating all the time. So when they took her and she disappeared and she totally went the other way, it was such a loss. And she's such an important witness. She was there at the Bonaventura pitch session. So when they got her and she sent me this letter saying, you know, I didn't matter enough or something. They convinced her that I took her for granted. So they have a way of infiltrating family, love relationships, everything else. And I was engaged to her, and they destroy your fabric, your whole life. And they try to turn these people by misinformation, doubt, things like that. So that's when they had me in 1996. And that's what happened. Wachowski's, the first time the Matrix title appears on a screenplay is then. So they destroy you, your life, and everything else. And then after that, every single woman that came to me, they come to, like, I wouldn't ask them out, they come to me, they're approached in length. Some with two, like Toby Kiefo, 2 hours long being approached, but people shouldn't even know. He's crazy, he's dangerous, he's this, he's that. And that's how they play. Even if you're noted clinically for tremendous empathy.
So that reminds me of this woman, and I think, well, I have like a final thing for you, but that reminds me, I want to bring this up. There's a woman I went and saw in college named Sister Solja. And she's actually written a novel since then. It's a really good novel too. But she gave a talk at Oregon State University, and it was about ancient African culture. And it talked about how the origination of the reason for marriage came from ancient African culture, which is so beautiful. And I really think this is important to bring this up, that the idea is the suitor gets to know the whole family, and that is so that really it's guaranteed that the children that come from that union are going to have a father and are going to be protected and are going to have a family, that it's not just, anybody can come in and have sex willy-nilly. It's like, and I think that, you look at Christianity and there is that institution of marriage and no sex before marriage and all of that. I think that it's really important to look at the roots of where this institution comes from and the original undiluted intention behind that. And I think when you're talking about them destroying your family, I see that. It's just they're attacking that original ancient bond that is there to protect us and give us a stable support system.
Right. And plus they do it from their perspective, because when they say, I didn't realize this, when Hollywood says, and I have contacts on tape saying it, they're going to destroy you. And I thought that just meant, make your life rough. But no, what it means is they're going to kill your sons, the male heirs. They're going to take your women to bed or give you prostitutes for wives. And they're going to then, after you see that and all the horror of that, either you're supposed to take yourself out. They keep having my sister say, you're a murder-suicide. You're going to die of suicide. No, I'm not. But the thing is, like, they're going to keep saying that. And if you don't take yourself out, they'll make it look like you did. And anybody else still with you. And so that's how they did it. And it's like, what I answer back is, first of all, it's not a game. They say, like, you won the chess game. And if you murder someone's sons, then you're going to dedicate the rest of your life and your work to their honor and memory. And you're going to finish the work so other people don't go through it. I'm all choked up right now. But yeah.
Yeah. No, and I can't even begin to imagine. I don't have a family, but I can't begin to imagine the pain and the suffering that they've inflicted on you. And I think it's important for people to see that, because they're trying to say you're crazy and they're trying to discount your story, and you have a lot of passion. I think it's really important.
Thank you for saying that. But you know what, Terry Joyce, when she was bought off by the FBI, she sent me the text I can send you where the FBI says the FBI contacted me on my son's birthday, and then she changes right over. Now she's saying, oh, he faked it, he acted. How can you say it to a father that lost his sons? And then my sister's now supposed to give the talking point. He doesn't care about them at all. He doesn't feel anything. Are you serious? Yeah. So they really try to amplify the horror and create despair.
Now it looks like we lost Chris, but I'm guessing that's because he has been being targeted. It sounds like
probably cut off. Yeah, I mean, if you look at Red Pill's 78's interview, and you'll see that he said even in the beginning that he had never been hit so hard. Basically, he never seen this even before he got on the air. So it happens all the time. I'm surprised we had such a smooth session for ourselves.
Well, I mean, I'm not like a high profile type of individual, and I'm not. I don't think they have I'm not that interesting to them, I'm sure.
No, I think you are. Yeah, I think you definitely are interesting in that.
At this point, maybe.
Yeah, huge. You're huge. Yeah, no. What you're doing is historic right now. It's the perfect timing, right at the right moment. And it's when Disney's falling, and I just got the word they're imploding. And we got their contacts. Now you're seeing like Brad Martin saying, he may take it back now, but he had said, I was on set and they made it up as they went along. Yeah, the script. Well, so it's like, now we've got them. Like you said, the key is we make the film as it was written. We get funding for that. And it's like, make the film as original copyright preceding the Matrix. Like we said, it's listed at, in 98. So that's the version of my copyright that's preceding the Matrix, So that's going to be huge. I mean, you'll see it right there from these guys, 98. So this is the one that was actually on set, from these guys. Specialist and director of the copyright. It says gold seal and the blue And the bolting means there's no debate. And this, we got this after we were told by Warner Brothers attorneys and them leaked it, that they were going to switch it out for 8 pages of scribbled notes. They had the insider at the copyright office. So we got it. We got it before they did that. Because the Rankin, the sold out attorney they provided, that was landlord of the wife, that's so connected, so tight here, said there'll only be 8 pages of scribbled notes there. Well, way to blow it, buddy. So his head may be on a platter later,
well,
too. So
there's something that I think is worth mentioning in all this, and I wanted to kind of bring this particular interview to a close, and I think that there could be a potential for future interviews just based on all of this that we're uncovering and talking about.
Yeah, there's so many questions I didn't answer yet. I want to do it for you. So yeah,
I know. We covered a lot of great stuff, though, so I am grateful for what we did cover. And you know, I want to discuss like what you think, and I feel bad that we lost Chris because I wanted to hear his take on this too, being involved with the Q movement. It's like, you know, how do we talk to people that are still asleep? And I think one of the big things, I don't know if you follow Q yourself, but Q continues to say, patriots, you know, stand at the ready. And some people are asking, well, what does that mean? Well, I really think that what it means is that when all of this is revealed, because that's what Q is doing, Q is going to taking these people down, and they're slowly revealing what these people have been doing. I think the citizens who are not aware of this, they're sort of asleep or whatever, they're going to have some sort of breakdown. Like this is going to hit them in a way that when they realize what's been going on, that leaders, pastors, you know, government officials, people in Disney that you know, targets children with these videos, that they're all involved in this horrible human, just like crimes against humanity. People are going to go into shock. They're going to get PTSD, and they're going to need some help in navigating.
Well, think of it this way. Think of it this way. We're going to make the films. I get contacts calling me saying, let's see your 14 other screenplays. I got 14 other screenplays better than The Matrix. We're going to encourage other people to create. They're going to be freed up. We won't need these fat in the middle like Joel Silver and Spielberg, and they call them Spielberg in Hollywood. We don't need those guys. They're in the way. They have no creative mind. So let's get them out of the way and have the actual visionaries create work. I got 14 waiting to go. So once we have the shift and everything happens, then we're going to bring these works forward. They're going to be layered. People will have a gentle immersion into a really creative society, a golden age. So I don't think there's going to be too much problem. Yeah, I think, because you asked what happens when you win the case, you're going to see a whole different world. And that's what I'm told is that, you know, Tom, you're the key. Even paparazzi said, Tom, just stay alive. Dangerous people in Hollywood are helping you. It's common knowledge through all the organizations, even Quentin, the Batman stuntman, Quentin. He asked around Warner Brothers for us all, and he said, yeah, it's common knowledge your work was stolen. So it's like, and look at the caliber of these people that steal, like Sophia Stewart and the Wachowskis, you know, and the urban legends they create. It's like, no, she didn't win the case. Warner Brothers staged it so they didn't show up to this malpractice thing or something. And her number one told me all about it to make it look like she won. She didn't prove anything. They just didn't show up. So a default thing doesn't prove anything. It didn't prove she was right, or she doesn't have one matchup. So let's just end that right now. But the thing is that what's going to happen is they had all these dumb people who were there because of loyalty and then greed and needing to steal out of USC and things. So what's going to happen is when the enlightened people and visionaries take the reins, through the work proving it and the evidence finally shown, I think people won't have that tough a transition. The sellouts will. The sellouts will, because my sister's deadly afraid of being revealed, of all the cruelty and crime that she's responsible for. My sister, more than anybody on this planet, is responsible for the death of children. My sister is responsible for this going on, because when they got her in the pocket through Fitzpatrick, who is going to win this election and is active FBI, California, Hollywood, Spielberg pocketed, then they're going to do they're going to keep doing harm. Black helicopters fly over everything. My sister is a mouthpiece for evil. She's become the queen of darkness. And it's like, and that's what they do. And that's supposed to create despair for me. But for me, it's like, okay, if you chose that, that's your choice. Live with it, deal with it. I'll deal with, you know, people that actually do have a heart. So our family now, for Aiden, he's cut off from entire family except for my mom and my dad and my brother Mark, and people who are friends and associates coming on like now. So you're his family now. You're his family, because we're not invited to any functions, no weddings, anything, because of the rewards they're getting. And they hold these family meetings. Information meetings are the way they destroy your life. That's how I lost every job. They have information meetings. Robertson's contingencies brought in. Don't use him. He's crazy and everything else. MAPA on Maui, Maui County Performing Arts. I was like considered the glue that holds together. 5 years, tour managing, writing, everything. Then suddenly they have an information meeting. And then the guy who is a real pedophile himself, David Johnson, he gets on there, having worked with Warner Brothers now, and said to me on the phone, I'm letting you go because I heard from others that you had worked with Robertson. And I realize now you're at fault for everything that went wrong in the organization. And then they had this guy named Marcus Bradley, who's actually Bradley Marcus, who was in charge of Saturn Awards, is there. If you look at Marcus Bradley's site, you're going to see him with Spielberg. You're going to see him with listed as a writer for Joel Silver. Oh, you didn't know pieces. And has his fictitious account called Marcus Bradley. Marcus Bradley, right? It's Bradley Marcus. Marcus Bradley has the one that supported Mappa saying, the great David Johnson, and you're hurting, and I'm friends with him, and he's my good friend. That's Joel Silver. That's Joel Silver and Spielberg. So you've got these organizations, even mom and pop shops on Maui selling out, and they're boasting about everything they have, and they're telling people if you work with Tom, you won't work in the arts anymore. And it's a disease, a cancer, an infection that just everybody seems to sell out, even organizations. Grand Wailea, I was moving right up, and suddenly I'm cut. And I have a tape of the main lady saying, I know you didn't do anything wrong, but we're going to say this anyway, because,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I on this weird, I'm an empath, and on this weird level, not weird, it's just probably not expected. I actually kind of feel like I understand what these horrible criminals are maybe feeling in the pit of their stomachs, in the sense that when you commit crimes like that, and I mean, all the things they've done, there's something in you that must be like just terrified. And I think that,
I think you're right.
They're probably on some level, they're probably so afraid. Like I brought this up a little bit earlier.
Oh, they're terrified.
I want to bring this up towards the end of this interview, because I think it's really something I'd like to leave listeners with. And I'd like you to, think about what you'd like to say to leave us with this time too. But for me, I'd like people to kind of contemplate maybe these people who are just abject criminals, maybe on some level they're so afraid to come clean, turn themselves in, quote unquote, rat out all their co-conspirators, because they're so like, they don't see them, they're going to be, forgiven. They're just like, wow, this is going to, people are going to hate me. I'm going to go through all this crap. And I think on some level, I'm not saying we should forgive them, but I think if we can understand that might actually be something, because they're people on some level in there, they're people. Even though
you're absolutely right. I mean, you're right. I mean, I can give the example again with the sister again. I mean, she went from being this beautiful, articulate, lovely being to arrogance and terror. I mean, when she called me that one time when my son Sean died, she calls me on the phone and says, no condolences. That's 2 years of absence, because you're supposed to cut the person off and create despair when you were close. And then she's going on that conversation, which I was taping later. It says, Tom, you have to say you're angry, bipolar, and suicidal. I'm like, why are you saying that? I'm not. And then when I wouldn't say it and said I wouldn't, and she's going like, if you don't say it, then we can have a relationship.
It's like Scientology.
Yeah, right. And then I'm like, and she goes like, if you don't say it, you're saying I don't matter. I'm like, well, Julie, if that's the conditions, you don't matter. And so she goes off that phone call and starts telling everybody, including family, oh, he said he was suicidal. When did I ever say that? I am not. All my writings are about lifting life, loving life, that I'm here for a purpose. I'm going to finish a job and honor my sons and my last son living. Why would I ever leave? So that's what they're doing. And if you listen to her voice, it's always manic and scared and fearful and vicious. That's what she sounds like. So you're right. Fear is the operative word. That is the word.
Yeah,
She's scared shitless. Yeah.
I think if we were able to say to these people, listen, you are going to go through a due process and you're going to go through a punishment for what you've done. But listen, we understand that a lot of you were actually held in blackmail. I actually feel like that would encourage a lot of people to come forward to just know that there is an understanding. Because like, if you look at all the, like in Congress, I think it has to be true that they have been a lot of them have been blackmailed. Like, if you do this, we will let your family live, right?
Well, there's things.
Yeah. And so, and like threatened with your family dying or you raping a child. I mean, I don't know. I think it's it's like a Sophie's Choice, but worse times 12. But I think that on some level, if the American people, maybe the global population can understand if that is true, and I do think it is, and offer a little bit of calm, like, look, you did something horribly wrong, and yes, you will be punished, but I acknowledge your humanity, and I acknowledge that you were put up to this, and I actually think that would go somewhere.
I think you're absolutely right. You said, what do we do when we win? When we win, we can do that very thing. Because I'm being told by Hollywood that the power lies right here with this whole piece. This Immortals piece, the Matrix story. How many people had their lives affected by the Matrix? And so the thing is that when you realize the proof is all here. And I think people are going to kick themselves a little bit later, some of them. Not the trolls, of course. But the thing is, like, the evidence is so blatant. Like, I did some things on Twitter, some of those posts on Twitter, like under Althouse Tom. And it's like, you look at the layers just in some of the sheets from the copyrighted script.
Yeah.
It's like you see them all there. Liquid mirrors, exterior devices at the train station. It's like, yeah, I think people are going to be able to, we'll definitely give them that license, and we'll welcome them to the better world. Because I think Disney at its core is not dumb. They know how, out of all these other studios, they know how to harness what is the best way for them to go. Now, Eisner's worried about his legacy. Now, when Bob Iger was saying he was going to call me, yeah, that's a smart move, you know, but then Michael Eisner got cold feet. They you know, he probably thought we're going to review him for the pedophile thing. But the thing is that once Disney makes the right choice, like he paid off Steve Jobs, but if he actually makes the right choice to do good, then he'll get the good artists. And it's like, and he knows me, he knows my work. He's been having a strategy for how many years trying to acquire it, which was what Mike Lang was put in position for as Harvey Weinstein's boss, right? And when Mike Lang leaves Miramax Films, Harvey Weinstein put in place. What I would tell people is a better world's coming. We've had nerds in charge of Hollywood and with wet fantasies. And that's why our world's a mess. It's nothing deep. It's nothing complicated. It's simply nerds getting over with cigars and brandy and saying, hey, we've got the power, let's use it. And keep in mind the context that it's all about power. They don't understand compassion, but they're getting a lesson quick, a crash course in it. They're understanding that they can't destroy a writer because they murdered his sons, but he'll keep going in their memory so other sons and daughters don't die. That the passion is there, and the compassion is more powerful than greed, more powerful than the desire for success, more powerful than the promises of wine, women, and fame. And that we do create as a service. That's the best writers you can get. I've got 14 more. They've been pushing for them. I can't wait to bring them out. They're better than the Matrix. Of course they are, because that was my door opening one. So all these writers, you're going to see other writers encouraged. We want to form a company where writers are lifted, that stories are told, and especially elderly. We have elderly set away in nursing homes. And that's why not happy with Christopher Nolan. He ruined the whole thing. It was supposed to be about looking at elderly as children again, looking through their eyes, what they feel as their stories are a library. They are valuable. They used to be valued in ancient history. Let's bring them back again as being valued. Well, not that long ago. Elderly shouldn't be just shut away in nursing homes. If we can, let's raise them as family. Let's take care of them like they took care of us. And let's value their stories. Let's value their wisdom. Let's lift them again.
Well, there again is that there's that immortality theme again of really that continuity. Now,
that's the core of who I am. So yeah.
Tom, I really, really appreciate your time today, and I think that you have a case, and I think that this is an incredible time, you know, for all of us. And I give everybody your, where can people find out more about you? Where can people send you? You know, where can people invest in your film? Give people your contact.
Redpillrising.org. Redpillrising.org is the
Great.
But that's the website. And finally, they've always had plants that, you know, shared it and then they would destroy it or take the money off it. But now I finally control it myself. So now those joining in like Christopher and Emily and others, we can have this site secure. So there's a PayPal on there. It does help because they've taken everything. When that woman left, she took all our finances out. And then they had this Spokane attorney named Stencil, who's horrible. He claims to be a religious right, top 10. And arguing in Supreme Court, whatever. He made sure that the documents that he inserted in the cases said zero income for Becca. Well, she had multi thousands of dollars. And the thing is that, you know, Aiden got everything taken away. But PayPal's on there, redpillrising.org. They're starting to let it be accessed now. A lot of people have trouble. On there's a tribute video Aiden made. They're very upset about that. The Hollywood contingency, very upset about that, Fitzpatrick. So if you can take a look at what his heart, he showed his heart on his own accord, created a piece that showed what it's like to be the son growing up in this and what he feels about this message. Beautiful.
I watched that. And if that makes them angry, then you can kind of see right there the character of these people. I mean, there's nothing in there that you should be angry about. Like, it's just.
I know. It's like, yeah. And then I give my phone number out too for those that allow me. I do. I've gotten calls from all over the world. I can't take foreign calls right now, but I can take Skype calls from those overseas. But the thing is, it's been wonderful to connect with so much of humanity. I want to make myself available to everybody. You know, be out there for everyone, because I don't believe in a pyramid. I don't believe in a hierarchy. I don't believe that anybody's a star over somebody else. Keanu Reeves should be at the bottom. You're a star over Keanu Reeves. You're more important. And it's like, I'm talking to the public in general. Anybody who sells themselves out to have fame and fortune, and believe me, they have to have dirt on them in order for them to have that kind of grooming. Warner Brothers has worked overtime grooming that man. So I'm saying everybody does matter. I don't care about slogans right now. I've been saying it all my life. And for anybody to diminish that phrase makes no sense in the world. How can you tell people who are pacifists or love all life that they're wrong for saying it? What? No. All life should be celebrated. What is wrong with that? All life includes everybody. So where's the problem?
Yeah.
So I lift all life. I certainly do. And if I get beat up for it, so be it. I'll keep saying it when I get back off the ground and dust myself off. All life matters.
That's
And
an
that's
awesome.
the screenplays and everything.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, I think that this is a time when I think we're going to really be able to make the shift that people have been wanting to make for centuries. And I think it's finally here. And I think it sounds like you're part of this. So I'm, again, delighted to talk with you. And I think, we'll look into doing another one of these. And, but thank you so much for your time and sharing all the answers you have and sharing your story. And I encourage everyone to follow Tom, support Tom, invest in Tom's project. And more to come. But I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I hope that things just continue to unfold for you. And it sounds like they're going to. So again, thank you.
Can I just say one more thing too?
Absolutely.
I want to put a shout out to a young man named Rain. And the reason I say that, I think it's indicative of what's been happening when youth have supported this thing about, the mortals being the key, and how it's going to make the difference. We do hold the key. Warner Bros. Is stuck. They're catch-22. They cannot beat. If the Immortals is made, love it or hate it, people are going to come see it. If they put an injunction on it, Warner Bros. Loses. If they let it go, people will see the matchups, and the Wachowskis lose too. So it's over. But Rain has been somebody who's talked to his, student body. He's talked to his parents. He's talked to others. He's gotten shot down every single time. They call him crazy. They say, no, it's not true. It's you don't support him. Rain is one of those frontier youth that actually stood up.
Well, yeah. I think that what we're going to see, and people need to remember, doubt and fear, those are the only real, this big organization behind who's attacking Tom and holding Tom down and suppressing this real message and all the other things they're doing, their main weapon is if they can generate fear and doubt within us, then they can use us to manifest their reality of terror and horror and no rights and everything else. So if we have to remember in that moment when we start to doubt, it's really hard work, but if you can do it, it's incredible. You can turn things around. And so I think that people like Rain, he's it's amazing, but I think that more of us just need to do that, because we're the majority.
That's right. And we are. You're right. Absolutely right. And we forget that. In the play, it says remnant. In my screenplay, it says remnant. That's why they call her Trinity, a biblical name. Plus, there's 3 love interests, Trinity. They're mocking. But the thing is that remnant, they're scattered people with talents, cross disciplines, abilities, heart, faith. That's what the code in the Matrix is, the immortal story, to bring those together. People would see it and go, I see something here. I want to come together. And then we solve the world problems. That's it. But the biggest thing we can do to defeat Hollywood is to suss yourself out, check your own heart. Do you have a price that could be bought? Is there something that you would want so bad that you would sell your integrity and everything for? Identify it, deal with it, and do no longer have a price. Get rid of that price. Make it so that when they offer you something, you can say, I have a clear conscience. I'm not interested. I don't have a price. And you've just sent the darkness back to the whole. That's what's going to do it. You have to have people that don't have a price. They think everybody does. Warner Brothers believes that. It's their agenda. Transgender is one of their agendas, but their main one is this: to have people believe we're all dark and we do have our price. Let's teach them we don't.
Yeah. Well said. Okay. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you again so much.
My pleasure. Let's do it again.
All right. Bye-bye, Tom.